call to order, please?
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I'd like to call the meeting to order. If I could have a mover and a seconder to confirm the agenda, please. Councillor Margetson, seconded by Councillor Prinzen. All those in favor? That carries. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof? Anything to declare? Councillor Hirsch.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have to declare a conflict in the case of items 5.8 and 5.9, as my property is potentially directly affected by these proposals.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, seeing none. On behalf of members of council, our staff, and myself, I'd like to welcome all the guests in the audience to the Planning Public Council meeting. Tonight's meeting is being live streamed, and any participation in meeting procedures will become part of the public record. The recording from tonight's meeting will be published on the county's website immediately and can be viewed by selecting the streaming tab on the county's homepage. This meeting is a public meeting as required under the Planning Act and will deal with the planning applications listed on the agenda. If you wish to be notified of the decision of the County of Prince Edward on the proposed official plan amendment, you must sign the sheet. Must use the sign-in sheet located at the podium or make a written request to the clerk of the County of Prince Edward. If a person or public body would otherwise have an ability to appeal a decision of the County of Prince Edward to the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal, or LPAT, but the person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the County of Prince Edward before the proposed amendment is adopted, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal a decision to the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal. Deputations are limited to 10 minutes each. And if there are no identified deputations on an application, committee will proceed directly to the recommended motion without a staff overview. The Committee of the Whole will consider and vote on each application separately, immediately following any staff remarks and comments from the applicant and/or any member of the public. Please note that there is a potential that matters raised at the public meeting may result in the written staff recommendation being amended verbally at the meeting. Motions that receive a 2/3 majority vote in favor of the staff recommendation will be approved and final at tonight's meeting. Motions that do not receive a 2/3 majority vote in favor of the staff recommendation will be referred to staff for further information or deferred to either the next Planning Public Council, and determination will be made at that time if further public notice is required, or to the next council meeting for a final decision. As matters of housekeeping, to exit the building in the event of fire, please use the stairs outside the door of this chamber or the stairs off the committee room to the left. Do not use the elevators. And please turn off or mute all cell phones. And if I could have a mover and a seconder to move us into Committee of the Whole. Yeah. Not everybody at once. Councillor Bailey, Councillor Prinzen, all those in favor? That carries. Councillor McNaughton, I am handing the meeting over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and happy belated birthday. I hope it was lovely.
You got me back.
Yeah, I did get you back. We will start by asking planning staff to confirm if public notice for today's meeting was provided in accordance with all Planning Act requirements, was it?
Notice was provided, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Just to advise everyone here, we have a couple of applications that were advertised. They've been deferred and they're not on tonight's agenda. The first one is the consent and rezoning file numbers B6-18, B7-18, and Z7-18, Judith and J. Mary Black, 1142 County Road 19. Do I need to read the whole thing? Are we good? Laura?
You just read down to Ameliasburg.
Okay.
Just the legal description.
Okay.
Thank
Part
you.
lot 91, concession 2, as in PE 92479, Ward 4, Ameliasburg. And the second one is the consent and rezoning file numbers B50-19 and Z49-19, Darren Clark, County Road 1, Part Lot 93-94, Concession 5, as in PE 180456, except Part 3, 47R8091, Ward 7, Hillier. So those are not on the agenda any longer tonight. And we'll get started with our items for consideration. 5.1, Hillier Vineyard, Inc. Is the applicant or agent here?
Sorry, Madam Clerk.
Yes.
Or Madam Chair. So we ask staff for additional comments first, and then the owner
Right.
applicant.
Sorry.
Thank you.
No, thank you. Please, anytime, interject. Sorry. Hi, Paul. Hi, Steph. Hi, James. Staff, would you have any additional comments that you would like to mention at this time?
Through the chair, there was an additional provision added to the bylaw at the last, just on the last day, and it has to do with limiting the number of structures associated with the distillery to 2% of the agricultural area. That's straight out of the OMAFRA guidelines, so we did add it as a provision to the zoning bylaw. And that's the only change.
Thank you very much. And now, at this time,
Thank you, Madam Chair.
you are welcome.
Brendan O'Connor, I'm land use planning consultant. We've reviewed the changes that were made, and we are in agreement. And we've also reviewed all the conditions, and we're in agreement with all of them except for condition number 6, which is the lot grading and drainage plan. The reason we'd like to see that removed is we're talking about large, almost 30-hectare agricultural lots, one of which isn't proposed to be developed. It's currently cash cropped. And so when we're looking at the lot drainage plan, we had to identify building envelopes and that type of things. There is no building envelope being proposed, and they're of a size that we feel are appropriate to not require that provision. I understand and support that provision when it comes to 1 and 2 acre lots. You're talking about constrained areas, but in this particular case, we're talking about large agricultural lots.
Thank you. So, in this particular case, would any staff members like to comment on this?
Through the chair, it is a standard condition that we've been requesting of pretty much every severance application. So it's not new to this file.
However, is it appropriate for this particular acreage?
Just to add to that, Madam Chair, it is a standard condition, and the proviso in that condition is to the satisfaction of the Director of Development Services, so that's where we find some more flexibility. In terms of references, essentially within that wording of the condition. So what's really being looked at is if there's any major swales that need to be guaranteed going forward, and basically ensuring the integrity of the highway in this case. The approach that's taken is usually to offer a schematic version of a drainage plan. So it's just as a typified drawing. It's not necessarily the exact place in which the building envelope would eventually be established. So we do have some general best practices and approaches to addressing this condition when we're dealing with some of these same kind of variables that aren't nailed down yet.
Would any council members like to ask questions at this time? Well, yes. Councillor Nyman?
Are we not to hear from the audience first, or does it matter?
We actually, you go.
Through you, Madam Chair, the preamble has been changed slightly because there was confusion in the past. So the applicant or owner or agent may come up, council may ask questions, and then we ask the audience, council may ask questions. We may need to get the agent back up again, depending on how the conversation goes.
So at this time, you can ask questions of Mr. O'Connor.
So when do we ask staff questions?
You could ask staff questions related to the comments from the agent or applicant. Now, sure.
Yes. Do you have a question or a comment for? Okay. So does anyone, I will clarify, does anyone have any questions or comments for Mr. O'Connor?
Well, I have a comment.
Regarding this issue. Yeah.
Thank you. I tend to agree with the planning consultant that 2 parcels that are 75 acres, one 75 acres and one 90 acres, and no development will happen until after the consent, which they have to fulfill the drainage plan prior to getting that consent approved. And they won't be developing it, so they won't know where the building is going. Now, if it's restricted to the approval of the director, then maybe they can use their discretion when they have to fulfill that and say, this is, in this case, it would be nice, I think, if the planners could use their discretion in using blanket clauses or conditions on every severance, but I understand what the consultant is saying, that in this case it may not be warranted to do a drainage plan on such a large acreage and not knowing what they're developing. And even the number of buildings is so small relative to the size of the, yeah. That's my comment.
Thank you. Councillor Maynard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We see these once in a while. I know we have had past precedents where we have waived this clause for large parcels of land. My concern is that if we go with a schematic version of a drainage plan, and then that covers that condition, that when they do, I don't know if we put because we want the drainage plan if there's a building going up. So then that, if they only have to do a schematic now, they may not, if a building does go up, if they develop it in the future, that's when we're really interested in having that drainage plan. So to put it in there now and have little teeth in it, or say that it's just going to be a schematic, is onerous on the applicant now, and probably doesn't get us what we want when the development actually occurs in the future, which is to make sure that there's no adverse effects from that building. So how do we get both things in one? Like, do we just put a, you don't really want to put I don't think a hold is probably the appropriate, but how do we ensure that it's not overly onerous on the developer at this point and serves our needs to make sure we have a really good drainage plan if there is development?
Well, I understand the idea that these are large parcels and with relatively low lot coverage typically, that there's not going to be a big disruption to drainage patterns. I guess the only risk happens when that building, when it is erected and only needs to meet the 50-foot front yard setback from the street, that drainage issues might become a concern, because that's when we could see, even though the building code asks for positive drainage from the building footprint, in so doing, then we might be impacting some of the integrity of drainage that assists the road in functioning as it should. And the two don't always mix well without a design, as has been our experience. So I guess to answer your question, I don't really have an immediate solution to bridge the two approaches or preferences. I acknowledge the lower risk in a large lot and low lot coverage. What we lack right now is information associated with the existing drainage patterns associated with the roadways, the lands immediately next to it. I don't know exactly if all the ditches are adequate and how much development next to those ditches would perhaps influence their function. So I think even though the condition sounds very onerous, given that it is our standard wording and we provide a lot of detail in that and it's been fine-tuned over time, that more practically there's discretion by the director at the time that an actual drainage plan is being prepared.
Just a quick follow-up, because I know there's a time frame on completing these conditions. Is it possible that to massage that clause just so that it says the lot grading and drainage plan prior to any development on the lot?
That's a possibility. It would be needing to be worded in the form of a consent agreement under Section 53 of the Planning Act in order for it to be registrable. But that could be possible, yeah. There's other reasons why we haven't taken that approach, but it is a feasible approach.
Councillor Nyman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I agree with Councillor Maynard. In the past, we have, when the lots are big, we've just removed this clause because when it comes time to put up buildings, we capture it then with the lot grading, because we're asking somebody 75 acres to give us a plan how they're going to drain that 75 acres when it's been drained, I guess, now for probably 100 years or better. So the one question is there a problem with the drainage now from that property?
Not that we've heard directly regarding there being a drainage problem. Usually it happens post-development where there's the problem.
Okay, so with that being said, again, we'll capture that if they go to put a building up. So I'd like to make a motion to remove item 6, if I can get a seconder.
And you have a seconder, Councillor Bailey. Yeah, Councillor Maynard?
I guess it's to the motion, and I understand what, but how do we, or can we at this point insert something in there that the lot grading drainage plan be done, blah, 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 prior to any development? Because without that, I think,
Through the chair, it could be a development agreement shall be entered into in order to address condition number 6 wording.
Councillor Margetson.
I believe that scenario that you're proposing is more onerous than doing the drainage plan, to be honest with you. My comment is that the risk aversion here, I think, is a very low risk. I worked with the fellow that owned the property. He was going to build a huge winery bigger than you can build a distillery, and he built it in the middle of the field. I think he dug a pond right beside Highway 33, doesn't need a permit for that, and maybe affected the drainage. It's just trying to put things in perspective here of what we're doing. And I think I tend to agree that asking for a drainage plan at this time to get a severance is not that constructive. And I understand getting a building permit is maybe not the best way to do it, but they do have to submit a site plan. So hopefully someone in the building or planning department, when they review that, if it's a long distance from the road, have at it and go have fun. So I support Councillor Nyman's motion.
Councillor Bullock.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome.
For staff, I understand the the reasons for boilerplate wording on some of these, but I would suspect that this is also part of the checklist for a planner to go through what kind of items that they're going to just, you're nodding your head, so I'll take that as a confirmation. And I suspect that planning staff do site visits, is that correct? So if it's on the checklist of things to change and you do a site visit, you see in this case, it's not a big issue. Perhaps that boilerplate isn't required. As long as it's been sort of checked off, we've looked at it. And again, if there is development before a building permit is issued, drainage is normally part of the evaluation, is it not? So you're nodding your head. So I'm taking so.
Mr. Walsh.
Madam Chair, the conditions are, the wording of the conditions are things that have evolved over time through a great deal of empirical application. So as we have problems in the field with a drainage situation, we fine-tune the wording. Have a different experience, fine-tune the wording again. So there's a richness in some of the wording, a great deal of weight of experience that goes into the wording. Are there times when we just go about checking that box? For sure. That's also an efficient way of collecting all those experiences, ensuring that that knowledge capital is continued on through an approval decision. So I did a quick check there. You're speaking. I didn't mean to look distracted. I was looking to see what the engineer's comments were in terms of drainage. I don't see that there was any specific comments regarding drainage unless there's other recollection there, but I don't see any specific comments regarding drainage, and that's from the source that I would normally expect to see it come from.
So, if I may follow up. So just from a council perspective here, if we're looking at requiring people to do something when we know that there's, or we suspect highly, you don't know unless you look at it through 4 seasons, that there's not a drainage issue per se at this point. Why are we making someone go through a drainage plan if they're going to have to consider drainage before they develop the property further and satisfy us at that time that they have a drainage plan? So that's why I think there's some reticence here to put in a condition that seems to be superfluous.
Madam Chair, I'm hearing council member with experience knowing the land, so and plus together with the no comments specifically identifying a drainage concern, staff are less sensitized to the idea of that condition one either being removed or being deferred in the form of an agreement that it be done at the time of building permit. And just for clarification, building code doesn't require a drainage plan, so it does require positive drainage for the footings of the building. That would be a very relatively minor performance criterion relative to a drainage plan, but there is a distinction there. Just to advise council.
So, Madam Clerk, we have an amendment on the floor. Do we deal with that right now, if there are no further comments?
Yes, Madam Chair. If the mover and seconder are in agreement, perhaps we could move to asking comments from the audience before the amendment is put on.
Great.
Just for consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there further comments or questions from staff or from council right now? Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't know if am I supposed to be still speaking on the amendment, or can I speak on the whole thing? Since that's what I'm not sure. That's why I didn't want to miss my question, though.
Perhaps
the whole thing, I think, right now.
Perhaps we could ask for comments from the audience, and then council members still have another chance to ask questions. Perfect. If that's okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. So at this point in time, if anyone has any, and if any audience member would like to come up and speak to this this file, now's your chance. Anyone? No? Okay. So now's your chance. So Councillor Prinzen, you're first.
Thank you again, Madam Chair. Question to staff. In a couple other ones, and I might have missed it, I'm not gonna lie, but I was wondering, on the severed property, they want to put a distillery. Is there, I see that on condition 7, they have to apply for and obtain an entrance permit. Is there, I don't want to say a way, but I guess I'm gonna say a way, that we can make them have that on Greer Road to keep it off the busy highway? Is that in there that I missed, or is it not in there? But can we put it in there? If I can get
Mr.
a,
Coffey?
can I put it in there if I can get a seconder, just to keep, since it's an 80-kilometer off Loyalist Parkway and the Greer's right there, I just thought if they could put the driveway off Greer, it would probably make sense to me.
So
So this is another amendment.
Well, it may be if I can find a seconder, and depends on what our.
well, we might have some answers because Mr. O'Connor, the agent, has his hand up, and perhaps can we hear from him first?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The only thing I would say is that there's currently an entrance already been granted. It's existing. It's extensive. The lane is there. You're talking quite a bit of gravel and work that's been put into that. So for a number of reasons, one, it's been granted. Two, environmentally, all that material that's gone into that, and it's been there a number of years with no issue. And so I know they would be opposed to moving that entrance to a new location off of Greer.
Thank you. Does staff have any comment on this?
Sorry, through the chair, so to answer your question, it is possible to make that amendment. We are requesting something similar for another application tonight. As Brendan has said, it is an existing entrance that has been quite well established and has been in existence for several years. It's up to the committee to make that.
And I understand that, and I understand it's been in existence for many years, but if the property is going to have a distillery, I'm suspecting they expect an increase of traffic and an increase of people going in and out. So if I can get a seconder, I would still like to put that in there, that we make the entrance off Greer Road.
So at this point, Madam Clerk, I'm inclined to save that until we've dealt with the other amendment.
We should deal with the First Amendment.
Thank you.
And
We
then-
do have one comment over here first. Councillor Bullock, does it relate to Councillor Prinzen's matter?
It does, so perhaps we should wait till we've dealt with it.
Thank you, yes. So I would like to call the vote on the amendment. Would you be able to read that out for us if you have wording supplied? Or,
Yes.
thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair. So moved by Councillor Nyman, seconded by Councillor Bailey, that the motion be amended to remove recommendation 6 in its entirety.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So, all in favor? That passes. With more than 2/3 majority.
So under the circumstances, because procedurally, as the preamble states, that, and we still have another amendment to deal with, that if committee does not agree to the staff recommendation in 2/3, that it will go to the next council meeting, okay, but we'll deal with the next.
So now let's move on to the next amendment, and that is to require an entrance on Greer Road instead of, yes. So,
I need a seconder.
Councillor Bullock.
I will second that motion. And if I have the floor,
You
if I
do,
may
if
ask
you
some
want it.
questions, although I don't want to steal the thunder from Councillor
No, that-
Brinson. Question for staff, through you, Madam Chair. We did talk at the last planning meeting about a corridor control plan. I note that Loyalist Parkway is one of the major corridors, so I think it would be prudent, notwithstanding the fact there's an existing entrance, if we're looking at changing the use from an agricultural entrance that's fairly low use to a distillery which may have higher use, that using one of our secondary roads as the entrance would be prudent. Do you have any comments for council on that?
Through the chair, no further comments other than I think it's an accurate characterization that Loyalist Parkway being our main arterial roadway, north-south, and our gateway into the county from the west, i.e. Toronto area, so it's a very busy corridor, that minimization of the number of entrances is important. The more entrances we have on a high volume, high speed corridor means more turning instances and more stoppages to traffic and more public safety issues being posed, particularly on left-hand turns. So it is a question of one of the higher public interest issues.
If I may just follow up. So just a comment then. We know that there's a traffic study going on, that we have talked about developing a corridor control plan, and we know where the primary corridors are going to be. That's not a secret. So I would just suggest perhaps staff, when working on these kind of applications in the future, that put that into the mix at this time. Again, perhaps direction of council to look at that when you're presenting it to us, so that we don't go through this on the night. Obviously that removing traffic entrances onto main thoroughfares is something we should minimize.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments regarding this amendment? Yes.
Briefly, I don't know, and see it in here. Is it a farm entrance? Like this is to staff. Is it a 911 signed entrance to any type of a building, or is it strictly a farm entrance without a 911?
Would you like the applicant to answer that question?
Well, if staff can.
Okay.
Through the chair, I believe that it is a 911 address, that it is an existing building, so.
There's an existing building there? Okay.
Just through your, Madam Chair, just a point of clarification. The entrance was actually granted for a winery, so it's not an agricultural entrance. It was done and reviewed by the engineering staff a number of years ago in anticipation for a winery.
That was the large expanse of gravel that you referred to before.
That's right, and so we're not talking about an agricultural entrance here. So it's quite extensive what they've done to get that to the point that it is, and again, it was reviewed for this particular use. The distillery is going to mirror the farm winery policy. And so it's going to limit it in size to 800 square feet for retail and 800 square feet for tasting. And so again, that is limiting it in scale and scope. And so having them move the entrance when it was already approved and reviewed for that specific use, it seems rather onerous. And that's all I'd have to say on that. Thanks.
Thank you. Sorry,
yes,
through you,
Madam Clerk.
Through you, Madam Chair. I just need to clarify if we're amending a condition or if this is a new condition being added.
This would be, I believe, a new condition.
We could amend number 7 that the owner applies for and obtains an entrance permit and that has to come off Greer Road. We could amend number 7 if that's easier. And that's what flagged me on this was if it's already been an approved condition, why does the owner have to apply for and obtain another entrance permit if it's already there? So that's really what flagged me, and that's why I'm bringing this forward.
So, yes.
So we should read the amendment, just so everyone's clear. So the second amendment is moved by Councillor Prinz and seconded by Councillor Bolick. and that is to amend Condition 7, that the owner apply for and obtain an entrance permit off Greer Road. And is that it? Period?
And that,
Say that. Staff are going to read out the motion they're suggesting.
thank you.
Thank you, through the chairs. So what I'm hearing is that the entrance for the second portion, the entrance for the severed portion is relocated to Greer Road, and that the existing entrance onto Loyalist Parkway be closed.
Councillor Prinzen, that is how you understand it?
I would like to keep the traffic off the main road, so that's what I would put forward.
And you would agree with that, Councillor Bullock? Okay. Now, Councillor Nyman, you have a comment?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess I'm having a bit of a problem because what I'm hearing is the council today, whenever it was, passed this. I guess it had to come through council, did it, or did engineering just pass that entrance? Engineering passed it, so they applied for the permit, entrance permit, and they received the okay to go ahead with it. So at that time, did they get a civic number? There is a civic. So I guess for me, they went through the right steps. They got the permits. They've got the civic number. I mean, and I agree with Councillor Prinzen, because we had this discussion at the traffic committee about the traffic that is on that highway and the extra traffic that's going to be created, and how do we deal with it. But the horse is out of the barn on this one, and I think we have to look forward to the next one. So unfortunately, I can't support that motion.
Thank you. Councillor Roberts.
Thank you. I'm having a little moment of sort of cognitive dissonance. The entrance exists. It was approved by council. It's constructed, and it has a civic address. So why then do we have condition number 7 here?
Through the chair, again, this is a standard condition that we would apply to pretty much every severance application, and it applies in this case to the retained portion and not necessarily the severed portion because it is existing. So we're not creating any new entrances.
Do you have a sense that it's creating a problem by being there? You know, this exists. We're asking for something as if it didn't exist.
Through the chair, it maybe we're taking a second look at it anyway, because it may not meet standards that are current in the county. It is a commercial entrance, so it is worth taking another second look at it regardless.
Councillor Forster.
Thank you. Paul, I'm going to come right back to you here. And this has caused a little bit of confusion because this standard condition written down here, but we're having a whole bunch of discussion right now on something that we shouldn't really even be having discussion on because we have an approved road, we have numbers on it. Why are we even discussing this? Because I'm assuming if we move ahead with this amendment, is that one of these roads should be shut down. I guess this should have happened a couple of years ago when the first road was approved, that we should have moved it to Greer Road. But for a road that's already approved, and to have a condition in here is just opening the door up for a lot of discussion on something that really shouldn't even be happening right now. So I guess I need clarification because we've heard 2 councillors say they don't really understand why we're talking about this. Now we have an amendment on the floor for something that we shouldn't really even be talking about if that condition hadn't been there.
Councillor Bolek?
Well, I would like...
Oh, sorry. Sorry. I'm just railroading your answer.
Yeah, just to respond through the chair, it's not uncommon for this condition to apply to a parcel when it already has an entrance, because the standard at which that entrance was approved, it might have been a farm field entrance. It might have been a residential entrance, and now it's going commercial. So there are different kinds of entrances. So that condition would have been put there knowing that there's already an entrance there, just that it might need to be reviewed because the status of that entrance may have been different at the time than the development's now proposed. So there may be a real change in the class of the entrance. So if it was a farm entrance, and now we're looking at something more substantive than that, it would be appropriate to relocate it. Now, we did hear from the planning consultant for the application that it was a commercial entrance, and that's more substantial than a field entrance. But just to give you some rational background why we do apply this condition, even when we know there might be an entrance there, and as Matt was describing, it's to give it some additional, let's go back and see what class of entrance was approved there, and if the class is changing by virtue of the nature of the development, then it might need to be reconstructed. And if it's going to be reconstructed, then maybe it would be better at a different location.
No, I'm okay, because I understand. I hope everybody understands that, because you could have multiple condition. Yes, we're going to have this entrance here, but we've already done this, this, and this. So I understand why you have to do it, but I'm just saying this has created confusion right from the get-go. You know, they need to have permission, but this has already been discussed. We already know this is the best place for it under the past decision, but we're spending a lot of time on something that might get changed. Okay.
Councillor Bolek.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay. So question for staff through you. So do we know at this point, or do you need to go back and check the files to see what was actually approved with this road? Or the entrance, pardon me, it's not a road, it's a driveway, essentially.
We'd have to go back and check. I don't see the engineer's comments attached to the file.
Would it be most prudent to defer this, go back and have staff report back what the conditions on this driveway were? So rather than us sort of striking out in the dark here, come back and have a report from staff at the next planning meeting to give us all the information we need.
Let's hear from Madam Clerk.
So your second amendment is on the floor. If you're wishing to defer or refer for a supplemental report, then if the mover and seconder are willing to withdraw the amendment, you could put a motion to refer or defer. If they're not, then the amendment comes on, vote on it, and if that passes, you can still do a referral or deferral motion.
Thank you. Councillor Maynard.
Well, I would suggest that this is already being put over until the council meeting, and I would hope that this would be a pretty quick turnaround on finding out so it wouldn't cause any, it's not going to take any more time because this is already going to be deferred to the next.
Can I call a point of order?
To the next council meeting.
Because that's twice I've heard it, and when we voted on the amendment, it passed was two-thirds, so I'm wondering, where are we getting the idea that it's going to the council meeting?
If I may, Councillor Nyman, any motion that does not receive two-thirds in support of the staff recommended motion, so as soon as it goes away from the staff recommended motion, it automatically comes back. So all I'm saying is we could probably roll these into two, we could roll them together just to have a look at that entrance. I don't think council doesn't see entrance permits that don't come with the severance. That's not part of what we deal with, so we don't know. And, really we have not that I distrust, but I mean, we have the say-so of the agent that this is a commercial entrance, so it's not going to take any more time, and I think that a quick check, I would support the amendment if we put on there that it comes back to the next council meeting.
And to... So there are two things I'd like to do. First, is that possible for the next council meeting from staff? Okay. And the second thing, would the mover and the seconder like to go ahead with that? Sure. Okay.
So, Madam Chair, it's on the floor, so if the mover and seconder are willing to withdraw at this time, we'll withdraw the second amendment, do a referral motion, and it will go back to council on the 22nd, and then you have another option at that point, depending on the further information you'll get from staff.
Does it actually... Councillor Maynard, do you have a question, or are you comfortable?
Well, if the intent is to get the information on the entrance, then we should ask that question now and have it go back as a package deal. So that's why I thought if you put that on the floor, then that will automatically, it will come back to council.
So you have the amendment on the floor, and so it can be either withdrawn or voted upon. Then we still have to vote on the original motion.
Yes.
And then we can put a referral or deferral on the floor. You were talking about referring to staff.
So, Councillor Bullock,
yes,
you have a question?
My understanding, on point of order, just Madam Clerk, if you can just enlighten us. Once we refer it back to staff, we don't actually vote on the motion. That was my understanding.
Well, we do have an amendment on the floor that's been voted for and carried.
Just been all one.
And carried. And so we could vote on the main motion, because you have to vote on the amendment before the main motion. Okay. But immediately following, it could be deferred.
I'll withdraw my amendment.
And Councillor Roberts, one final...
Can we not simplify this? It is coming back to council as an amended recommendation of staff, because the staff recommendations were not fully subscribed to by council. Can we just tag on a direction to staff to come back? We can't tag on a direction to staff?
It's just too informal.
They've probably
but the meaning is there. The problem is you've accepted, you voted on an amended motion, but you haven't voted on the main motion.
So let's put the main motion on the floor. I believe staff has heard comments tonight that everyone else has heard. Do I have a mover and a seconder for this?
So that would be the main motion as amended.
Main motion.
And then do your deferral right after.
What's that?
Did we not already have a mover? Because before we can amend a motion, it has to be on the floor.
We had
Councillor Prinzen has withdrawn his motion.
No, but the main motion was, there's a mover and seconder, is there not?
So the amended motion was moved. The original main motion, or the original amending motion, the first one, was by Councillor Nyman and Councillor Bailey, that recommendation 6 be removed. So that's been carried.
But I'm talking about the original motion.
But we haven't dealt with that yet, so.
But it must have been moved before we could talk.
No, it was not.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah.
Okay, I just don't understand that. All right.
The main motion has not been moved yet.
Okay, but can we please move it? Do I have a mover? Okay, so Councillor Margetson, Councillor Nyman seconding. So, okay, point of clarification? Is that what, would you like? Okay, let's just, no, go ahead.
At this point, we would have to defer it at this point, right, before we vote on it?
Yes. No, you voted on the main motion as amended, and now you can do your referral. If you were going to refer to staff for a supplemental report, and that will come back on October 22nd. So the motion as amended will come back on October 22nd.
Okay, Councillor Margetson, would you read the motion?
Yes.
Thank you.
This is a Margetson-Nyman motion that the report of development services dated October 16th, 2019 regarding consent file B3619 zoning bylaw amendment file number Z38-19 be received, and that consent file number B3619 Hillier Vineyard, Inc. for lands located in part lot 16, 17, and 18, Concession 2, parts 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, 47R 8136, STPE 141545, except part 1, 47R 8308, Ward 7, Hillier, be approved subject to the following conditions: 1 through to 5 and 7 through to 11, and that zoning amendment file number Z38-19 Hillier Vineyard, Inc., and for lands located in part lot 16, 17, and 18, Concession 2, parts 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, 47R 8136, STPE 141545, except part 147R 8308, Ward 7, Hillier, be approved.
That's correct. And just for clarity, 6 wasn't approved because it was amended to be removed.
Thank you. All in favor? Oh.
Madam Chair, I think we've got a procedural issue. We can't amend a motion that hasn't been on the floor. So when we voted on that amendment, it was a nullity. We have to have a motion on the floor before we can amend it.
Madam Clerk.
It was very confusing, and I agree with Councillor Bullock now that I'm looking at it, yes.
Okay,
So we'll do a deferral or a referral motion. I do apologize.
Which still leaves us with the original amendment. Should we be, I look to you for guidance.
So from here, committee will have the choice that you could vote on a referral right now. It come back to October 22nd, and on October 22nd, you can do the amendment.
Is that acceptable?
Or we can go through all this again. Put the main motion on, do the amendment.
So Councillor Nyman.
So can we not just vote on the main motion?
Yes.
Then vote on the amending motion, and then if they want to defer it? I'm not going to support the deferral anyway, so.
Oh, it would be nice to move on a little, though.
Yes, I'm sorry. So the
that's
main
okay.
motion should be put on the floor, not voted on, then the amendment put on, then the main motion voted on.
Okay. So that leaves us.
Then we can do the deferral or referral.
Okay. So, Councillor Bullock.
I think we know where we're going as a council here. So
Yes.
rather than going through the whole amendment again, we know what's coming back to council. Let's just defer it now, get the information from staff, and then we can go through any amendments required at the next council meeting. That's my suggestion.
So the motion is on the floor.
I would suggest it be deferred.
The motion.
So sorry, Madam Chair, and I do apologize. Councillor Nyman is in agreement with it as the mover of the amended motion. So if they refer now, on October 22nd, when it comes back, then the amendment can be redone.
Okay, so we
I do
need
apologize.
to include condition 6 in the original motion then. So the original motion as.
So you put the main motion on, and then the deferral motion
Yes,
will
but
go on
we
immediately
accept,
after.
we
with
excluded.
with the conditions.
So do we need to reread it, or can we just kind of go for it?
The main motion will go on as is.
As it is written?
Yes, thank you. Sorry.
Okay, all in favor? Oh, we're voting on the original motion as it is written by staff with all.
We need a mover and a seconder for the original motion, which we skipped that.
Well, no, we've got Councillor Margetson and Councillor Nyman have put it on the floor.
That's right.
Councillor Margetson moved it and Councillor Nyman seconded it. And hang on.
That's right. That's correct.
we have now reinstated condition 6, and we can call the vote, correct?
So the main motion
On the main
now
motion.
has a mover and a seconder, Councillor Margetson and Nyman.
Yes.
And now that's put on the floor, it's been read, and now a referral motion can be put on right away.
Exactly.
And I do apologize, we got ahead of the main motion.
Okay, and I have a feeling I know what Councillor Bullock wants to do, so yes.
Right, so we have the original motion as presented in the agenda on the floor, ready for a vote. And at this point, I would move that it be referred back to staff for them to report back at the next council meeting. On the 22nd
And
of
Councillor
October,
Hirsch
2019.
would second it. And Mayor Ferguson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The motion on the floor excludes item 6.
No, not any longer.
Sorry, because
Councillor Margetson's
I'll just
in agreement.
clarify, because we didn't have a mover and a seconder for the main motion, the amended motion isn't
Okay,
there
let's
yet.
just-
But Councillor
let's just
Nyman's
move this
agreed to
forward,
bring that
We've already clarified
motion on
that.
October
Is that okay with
22nd.
you, by the way? You're the mover. Okay.
If we're deferring, then we need to say that we're deferring it for item 6 and whatever item the entrance permit is, 6 and 7.
So further information
Right,
from staff
exactly.
for conditions 6 and 7.
So thank you, Madam Clerk. So at this time, we're voting on a deferral motion.
Correct.
For clarification, so everyone knows, okay? So, and that deferral motion is,
Can be carried, not majority.
okay, all in favor? Is your hand up? 8. So that fails. Sorry? Oh, right, never mind that. See it, council.
Sorry, Madam Chair.
Yes.
So just to
No, I
clarify,
understand.
that item now, we'll get a supplemental
Move to the-
report from
Yes.
staff. The whole thing will now go to October 22nd. Councillor Nyman still has that option to put that amendment on the floor at council.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, that was unexpected. So, let's move on to item 5.2, Drew and Christine Harrison. And do planning staff have any additional comments?
Through the chair, no, we do not.
Thank you. Is the applicant or agent present?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just going to go ahead and agree with everything in this one.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Yay. It's a standing ovation. Pretty good. Does anyone in the chamber have any comments or questions regarding this file? Looking good. Okay. Yeah, I was going to say, let's put this on the floor right away. Who would like to move this one? Councillor Bailey, and seconded by Councillor Prinzen.
This is a Bailey Prinzen motion that the report of development services dated October 16th, 2019 regarding consent files number B37/19 and B38-19 and zoning bylaw amendment file number Z39-19 be received. That consent files number B37-19 and B38-19, Drew Harrison and Christine Harrison, for lands located in Firstly Part Lot 5, Concession 2, south of Bay of Quinte, as in NM 5688, lying north of County Road 8, except Part 1 47R 1996. Secondly, Part Lot 5, Concession 2, south of Bay of Quinte, as in PE 50737, lying north of County Road 8. Thirdly, Part Lot 6, Concession 2, south of Bay of Quinte, as in PE 52995, lying north of County Road 8, except Part 1, 47R 1301, Ward 8, North Marysburg, be approved subject to the following conditions: 1 through 12. That zoning amendment file Z39-19 Drew Harrison and Christine Harrison for lands located in, firstly, Part Lot 5, Concession 2, south of Bay of Quinte, as in NM 5688, lying north of County Road 8, except Part 1, 47R1996. Secondly, Part Lot 5, Concession 2, south of Bay of Quinte, as in PE 50737, lying north of County Road 8. Thirdly, Part Lot 6, Concession 2, south of Bay of Quinte, as in PE 52995, lying north of County Road 8, except Part 1, 47R 1301, Ward 8, North Marysburg, be approved.
Any questions or comments? I'm afraid of the answer. Good. Okay. Or was your hand up? Okay. All in favor? That passes. Next, item 5.3, Viola Homes Incorporated. Does staff have any further comments?
Through the chair, no, we do not.
Thank you. Is the applicant or agent present? Hello. Was the mic on?
Okay, I'm in agreement, we are in agreement with staff recommendations. By the way, Ashlea, apologizes for not being here. She's actually launching a program for Rogers on empowering women in executive and decision-making processes. I think they're streaming this as an example of decision-making or whatever, I'm not so sure. But anyway,
okay, sit down, Rorbert.
And it's mysterious as to why she picks me as her rep, but...
Thank you.
We do appreciate it. We're in agreement with the recommendations.
Thank you very much. So would anyone in the chamber like to speak to this item? No? Thank you. Questions and comments? No? Oh. No? Sorry? You put it on the floor first. Oh, yes. Would you like to move it? Yes. So Councillor St. Jean, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. St. Jean Roberts motion that the report of development services dated October 16, 2019 regarding consent file number B41-19 and zoning bylaw amendment file number Z41-19 be received, and that consent file number B41-19 Ashlea K. Viola Homes, Inc. for lands located in Part Lot 1053-1054, Plan 24, Part 1 and 2, 47R 1068, Ward 1, Picton, be approved subject to the following conditions, 1 through 13, that zoning amendment file number Z41-19, Ashlea K. Viola Homes, Inc. for lands located in Part Lot 1053-1054, Plan 24, Part 1 and 2, 47R 1068, Ward 1, Picton, be approved.
Thank you. Now, questions or comments? No. Okay, let's call this vote. All in favor? And that passes with a 2/3 majority. So, next item, item 5.3, 2693773 Ontario Inc. Do staff have any further comments?
Through the chair, no, we do not.
Good. Does anyone in the room have any comments regarding this file? Yes, I see one hand. Come on up.
Yeah, you meant 5.4?
Oh, 5.4, pardon me.
Yeah. I think Brendan should speak first.
Oh, yes, you're correct. Come on up. It's the Brendan Show tonight. That's right. Hello, agent.
Sure. Again, Brendan O'Connor, Laney's planning consultant. We've reviewed the conditions and we're in agreement. Just a couple comments. There's been some concerns from the neighbors regarding, namely, water. At least that's the main issues that we've spoken with Mr. Dalmage, and so we've worked with Mr. Dalmage. He also had some concerns around more houses in the area and buffering, and so we've agreed to a larger than normal interior side yard setback on the northern side of severed lot A. We're also severing on the other side of the land of the road, of Bethesda Road, and agreed to that on the northern lot as well. We are also, we've been working with Mr. Dalmage for a couple months now, and are going to continue to work with him with our well installer. He's going to be included in that process, and so we hope through the conditions there's going to be a 40-meter setback between each of the wells, and through the work of our well installer that any of these concerns will be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, comments or questions from the audience.
Could you leave the mic down for me? Got a pretty booming voice, but you want to live stream this, I understand. My name is Milt Dalmage, and just so you're aware, my deposition tonight will be focused on both 5.4 and 5.5 on your agenda. Now, I can cite the file numbers if you like, and I can read this thing completely twice if you like, but that property was one property up to a year ago, and now it's two on both sides of the road. So my concerns affect both of those properties. So when I'm speaking tonight, it will be in regards to 5.4 and 5.5. Okay? Is that all right with everybody?
Thank you, yes.
I'm here tonight because my wife, Jennifer, and our property is adjacent to the property in question. Our sidelines butt up to one another on the northwest side of Bethesda Road. I met with the developer, Michael Hymas, briefly at the old farmhouse on his property shortly after he took ownership. We discussed my concerns, and he said he wanted to work with adjoining neighbors as he moved forward with application for zoning changes and subdivision proposals. I told him that mostly I did not want a house built between his farmhouse and our house, and that I preferred the large buffer zone. He informed me that his intention, if approved, was to put one home on that lot. I asked if he would consider selling me that lot. He said yes, but we could not come to terms on a price. He then asked what I would be happy with. I said a further setback from the sideline, which Brendan has referred to, than what is required by legislation in the county. He has agreed to that. And also to leave as much buffer zone as possible, which seems to me to be sensible, but he said that if the setback was larger than necessary, then the buffer zone would probably remain. He also said, this is Michael Hymas, that he would prefer to build the home uphill, if you will, from where we live anyway, because it's higher ground. So we were in agreement to that. When I asked him about wells, he said he did not believe in blasting, which I was pleased about. Since that short meeting, I have seen and spoken to Brendan O'Connor on numerous occasions. He's kept me in the loop about what was happening in regards to the applications. Now that's the background. I've never wavered from my three main concerns, which Brendan and I have discussed. Not in any order specifically, but taxes, short-term accommodations, but the most important one to my wife and I is a respectable amount of well water, which Brendan has already alluded to. Taxes. I spoke with county staff about what would happen to property taxes on surrounding properties once 5 new county-priced homes were built. I was assured that although each new proposed building lot and home would certainly be reassessed for a much higher amount, as long as we did not make any changes to our property, that our taxes would not spike. I guess at this point I can only hope that that's the way it plays out. I've seen things like that not play out earlier on in county life in other areas, but we'll keep our fingers crossed. STAs, I also spoke with county staff about short-term accommodations. I was told that legislation should be enforced by the end of this year and that an application process would be in place. Also, that there are density factors, which, if anything, would only allow 1 out of 6 homes on said property to be allowed approval. In my view, that's also a good thing. Well water. My third and most important concern is an adequate supply of well water. I've spoken to Brandon O'Connor and Drew Harrison, who would be digging these wells. Drew says there's lots of water in the ground as he has witched the proposed lots, and his excavator can only dig to a depth of 20 feet. No blasting. I've known Drew my whole life. I have no reason to doubt him, but I still have concerns. My well is 12 foot deep and has supplied us with water since 1978. My question is, what happens if 5 more wells feeding 5 more families in 5 new homes have wells 20 feet deep? How will that affect my 12-foot well? I realize there are criteria which must be met, 40 meters apart, 3 gallons per minute, and I was also to understand no detrimental effect on existing wells, although the disclaimer I see in tonight states that the county will not guarantee the water of the new wells. It doesn't say anything about existing wells in the area. You know, there's still concerns in regards to how much water is down there in the ground. And once these wells are installed, you know, it's too late. I would like to know more about the criteria, as right now our well has 24 inches of water and at the lowest in 37 years. If anyone can shed any more light on this issue or the other 2 that I have brought up, please do so. Or if anybody has any questions for me, fire away.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Yes, Councillor Nyman.
Thank you. One question, Milt, is that, is your, I take it it's rock, your well's in?
No, my well is dug, 12 foot deep, no rock.
No rock?
Hard clay at the very bottom.
Hard clay.
And yet very short distance from that, I go down 4 feet in solid rock. So it just depends on the glacial deposits of years ago. And that varies just up the road from us. They had to blast to put a hydro line in, so I don't know what's going to happen when they start digging down. Drew did say he would use a hole ram as opposed to blasting, and that's much less invasive than blasting. So.
Okay, thanks.
I have a field right across the road from this place. One field spot in the field, you can go down 20.
Thank you. If you would like to make a comment after this particular speaker, then you may. But yeah, you can be next.
Any more questions for me before I sit down?
Thank you very much.
I got a whole bunch of answers. Any questions? Good.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak on this item? Come on up. So please come up and state your name and address, and if you would like to sign in on the sign-in sheet, you can do that also.
My name is Elmer Norton, and I'm a neighbor next door to it too. And I was just going to say, in the same field, I have a spot that's, you can go down 20 feet, and one spot, the next feet in the same field, there isn't 4 feet in your rock. And my question was too, I farm next door, would be noise if I'm out working at night with machinery. And then another, if I am spreading manure or anything, smell if you have new homes next door.
Thank you. Are there questions or comments? Yes, Councillor Margetson. Can you come on back up?
Just a quick question, Elmer. Are you 822 then? You're across the road from Milton?
Yeah.
Yeah. And how many acres do you own there?
There's 50 there.
50 there. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So, would anyone else like to speak on? Yes, come on up. Have you signed in?
I have not. Do I need to?
Come on up. There's a sign-in sheet right there, and then you can state your name and address and speak for the record.
Great. Jake LaRose. I'm at 83 McHill Road. Right across the road from Elmer and kind of kitty corner to Milt's place there. I really share both of their concerns. In particular, I think the one I need to highlight is well water. We have a dug well. It's not super deep. If we're proposing to add, it appears 3 and then another 3, or rather 5 total wells. There's a provision in here for supply to the new wells, but how do we ensure there's water in the existing wells? And is there any recourse there if we don't have water after these are dug? I'm just really concerned about that.
Thank you. Would staff like to comment?
Through the chair, I'd just like to first point of concern for Milt is SDAs. Since they're being rezoned to RR2, no SDAs would actually be permitted on the new lots. I think that should be noted. And then in regards to well water, we have spoken with Brendan, and I believe he also spoke with neighbors, and that's why we put in that 40 meter from existing wells to ensure that the wells are properly separated from the currently existing wells.
Thank you. Thank you. And Councillor Bullock has a comment or question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, it's a question or clarification from staff. I'm very sympathetic to the speakers there tonight because I was in their position 6 years ago speaking to council at the time because of blasting wells and stuff. I just want to clarify with staff that the law in Ontario hasn't changed, that we have no right to the groundwater. Is that correct?
I'm not really sure the full body of law surrounding the taking of water from the ground. As soon as you hit a commercial scale, then yeah, there are some restraints to that.
What we're talking here are
purposes,
rural residential properties.
It's legal as long as you construct your well in accordance to Ontario Regulation 903.
So there's very little recourse when somebody else digs a well on their property and yours suddenly goes dry. That's too bad, so sad. That's the law in Ontario. So the only real check and balance is either our planning or the agreement of whoever's building stuff. We've heard that there's sort of a gentleman's agreement going on here as to how wells are going to be constructed. But unfortunately, whatever decision we make, we can't affect any rights to groundwater. Is that accurate?
I think you've characterized it fairly well. Yeah.
Do you have comments? No, okay. Let's put the motion on the floor. Do we have a mover for this? Thank you, Councillor Roberts. Would anyone like to say, and Councillor St. Jean will second. So now, questions and comments. What's that? Oh, thank you, sorry.
Should I read it perhaps?
I do want you to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. This is a Robert St. Jean motion. That the report of development services dated October 16, 2019 regarding consent files numbers B44-19 and B45-19 and zoning bylaw amendment file numbers Z45-19 be received. That consent files number B44-19 and B45-19 2693773 Ontario Inc. for lands located in Part Lot 3, Plan 2, Gore B, Part 1, 47R 8796, Ward 6, Sophiasburg, be approved subject to the following conditions. Those are conditions 1 through 12. That zoning amendment number Z45-19, 2693773 Ontario Inc. for lands located in Part Lot 3, Plan 2, Gore B, Part 1, 47R 8796, Ward 6, Sophiasburg, be approved.
Hang on for just 1 second. Sorry, thank you. Now, questions and comments. Yes, thank you, Councillor Nyman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, I'm just wondering, because I attended the water conference today and Quinte Conservation was there and talking about groundwater and low water levels. So, and we're going to have another one tonight, but, and the gist was, of their presentation was, the more houses, the less water you're going to have, basically, because there's more wells. The question is, what's the density? Is there a limited density in a small area? So I'm looking, and I thought I counted 4 or 5 houses there, and now I think we're adding 6 more. So in a small area, what's the density that can be permitted?
Through the chair, Ministry of Environment and Conservation and Parks, they have their guidelines D54. If I cite the correct one, that may not be the exact index number, but their D series guidelines includes one particular guideline that talks about doing hydro-Gs. And it talks about encouraging municipalities to ask for hydro-Gs in certain circumstances. Circumstances is around a certain density level, and that density level is at the point of about 6 lots, 5 or 6 lots and up. You should be considering a hydro-G on private services if the density is lower than about 2 to 3 acres each. So 5 times 2 is 10 acres or up to 15 acres around that density. Anything less than that density or greater than that density, then you should be looking at reviewing water supply and impacts on adjacent septics. That's encouraged by MOE guidelines. It would vary in accordance with hydrogeologically sensitive areas versus those that aren't, etc., but that's the general guideline.
So what do we have here? What's the density here? Do you have that number?
We didn't, I mean, at least I didn't, maybe other staff can speak to it, but I didn't actually calculate the exact number, but at a cursory review, it appeared to be not triggering that MOE guideline. That, especially when we have the added abundance of caution of having the 40-meter separation of new wells to existing wells or from new well to new well, then we are in fact controlling that density level reflective of MOE guidelines.
Councillor Prinzen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to planning staff, if there's we heard one of the audience members, excuse me, speak about working agriculture for sound and stuff, but if there's an agriculture, should there not be an MDS circle around that barn that, you know, whether it be 5.4 or 5.5, it's gonna, but should there not be an MDS circle? Is there not a barn close enough to some of this property?
Through the chair, it was not brought through the application that there was a barn nearby or livestock facilities. I'm aware that there is crops, but I was not aware that there is livestock. I don't know if Brendan can speak to that.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. My understanding, there was no, in the review, there was no barn. He does have livestock there, but MDS, of course, does not apply to livestock on pasture. It only applies to the livestock facility. Regarding noise, odor, all of those types of things, there's right to farm legislation. There's no recourse for anyone in rural areas to complain about farmers farming.
Just a quick follow-up. Yeah, I wasn't referring to the noise. Like I understand all that, but knowing there's agriculture animals there, Paul knows how I feel about MDS, and I have a hard time knowing that the cows are around there. So I don't know all the, you know, I understand farm facilities, but knowing what goes on there, I imagine we are in Ontario, there is winter, so I imagine the cows do have a spot to go in once in a while in the wintertime.
Thank you, Councillor Maynard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I think there's many of us that are sensitive to the hydrogeological conditions that we are in the county, especially in, you know, what, 2 major drought years in a very short span, in a few years span. I just wondering, you know, when we look at when you talk about the guideline, and I think that's a cumulative to prevent a cumulative effect. Now we do here, because there's only 2 severances, but we know that farm was probably had a natural severance, although because of the road. So really, what we're seeing is more than. So if we look at all the severances in that area together, I don't see how it's really any different than what we're going to do tonight in 5.8, where there was 3 wells being proposed. And I think in all fairness, because this will be the only chance that the neighbors have to protect their water, especially when people are on relatively shallow dug wells. So I think that because we have this one and then another severance right close, that the cumulative impact probably does justify a what I would call a scoped hydro-G, where that there is a well pumping test for new wells constructed on each of the severed lots, and that, well, the monitoring of the drawdown rate of existing wells located at the neighboring properties. I think that is a reasonable request, considering our climate conditions and considering the water conditions in general in the county. So I'll ask for staff's, before I interject that as a condition, and how I might do so.
Through the chair to Councillor Maynard, staff did feel comfortable with the 40-meter separation as a means of managing the potential interference of well-to-well issue. 40 meters is quite a distance. When a well normally only needs to be 100 foot, 30-meter separation to a known point of contamination, such as a septic system. Staff would be more comfortable if we maybe had a standard procedure or standard condition for these sorts of things than to be making policy on the fly. So we do have some condition coming forward on another application, the McAvoy application, where there is a revised condition dealing with the drawdown rate of the adjacent wells. So that might be a good comparison if that's of interest to council.
Well, that's what I was actually looking at, so I was just kind of paraphrasing it, but I was looking to see if that was, I mean, pretty similar situations. And I mean, in all due respect to the applicants, I mean, we really have to take into consideration the effects that it could have on neighboring wells, and this will be the only opportunity to do that. So if we can, I don't know, like if we insert it, it's going to come back to the next council meeting anyway. So if you could tell us how to best do this. Because if we're going to do it in some areas, I think when we get density of this level, that we're probably better safe than sorry.
Madam Clerk, is it acceptable at this time to ask the applicant, or sorry, the agent, if they have any comments regarding this?
Sorry, through you, Madam Chair, I believe Councillor Maynard has a question to staff first.
No, that's fine, thank you.
My question is just best how to insert it, if it can come back to the next council, and the wording, if he would use the same wording that's in the condition for condition 7 that's under 5.8.
Through the chair, I think that would probably be the most appropriate thing to do, have the same wording that we'll hear in 5.8, that there be drawdown monitoring of the wells of concern that are adjacent to the developed properties, and that they be monitored during the pumping test of the new wells.
So I'll put that amendment on the floor at this point, and then we can, the motion has been put on the floor, correct? Yes. So I'll put that amendment on the floor at this time, if I can get a seconder. And
so,
so do you need me to read that, because it's already written there? But do you want me to read I don't have the numbers of the civic addresses. I can just say the neighboring wells.
Hang on. At this point in time, is there enough time for this to come back to council with this?
Sorry, through you, I didn't catch who seconded the motion. I know
Councillor St. James.
I wasn't sure.
And that was yes? Thank you. Okay, so we have an amendment on the floor. And do you have wording? Yes? You're reading the same wording?
So the condition number, and sorry, because I don't have paper in front of me, it's hard for me to flip back and forth. The condition number in this application is, that refers to the water, and I'll insert that. It's still condition number 7. Yeah, the condition number 7.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts.
Be modified to include the following wording: that the owner shall report a well pump test of the new wells constructed on each of the severed lots created through, and if you can insert the appropriate numbers, while monitoring the drawdown rate of the existing wells located at, and we'll insert the neighboring properties. And then the drawdown rate of the studied well shall be demonstrated to have no adverse impacts to the satisfaction of the hydrologist of Quinte Conservation Authority or other county-assigned hydrogeologist.
So we have an amendment on the floor. Everyone is clear on what that amendment is. You want to speak to that amendment specifically? We've got Councillor Hirsch just ahead of you. Councillor Hirsch, go for it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, and I'm speaking to the amendment, which I strongly support. And I would note 2 things. Mr. Dolmage, I think, mentioned only having 27 inches of water in his well. Now that's about where I'm at and getting worried. I hope this rain continues. And it smells really bad too. The second thing is, and Mr. Walsh has noted that perhaps we do need to have a new look at some of these texts going forward. Water is a huge issue in this county. We see it time after time after time. And yet the only texts we have now provide protection to the applicant, not to the people who live around. So I think we really need to do something along the lines of what we are being proposed now, and which you're also going to see in 5.8 and 5.9. And in 5.7, in fact, there was hydrological testing, again, of the neighboring wells. So strongly in favor of that.
Thank you. Councillor Bullock.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First a comment, then a question to staff. The comment is, I wasn't very happy with the answer I got here 6 years ago when we went through this. And yeah, water is a continuing concern as our density goes up. I think we should do what we can to sort of protect existing wells from going dry. And there are certain things, but perhaps we need to go the extra step as suggested here. My one concern, and I'll state it as a question to staff, is we're now dealing with third parties. right? So those existing wells are not the person who's applying for the severance. And I don't think we have any power to force them to do anything as part of this process. So obviously, it's in their best interest, but we certainly can't force. So I would suggest that when staff looks at the wording, we don't imply that we are compelling the neighbors to subject to any kind of testing. Again, I can't see why somebody would turn it down, but I think we have to be careful that it doesn't look that way. Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no further comments, we do have one. Councillor Roberts.
Yes, Paul, you made a reference to a cursory review of the water situation in response to Councillor Nyman's question. I'd like to ask this question of staff responsible in terms of how you came to this conclusion about the water situation.
40 meters. Through the chair, in consultation with Brendan O'Connor and the neighbors, we felt that 40 meters was a distance in which water could be separated, and new wells wouldn't have major effects on existing wells.
Thank you. Let's put the amendment on the floor. Well, the amendment's on the floor. Without further comments or questions?
Point of order.
Oh, you don't. No, I'm sorry. This is not the time for that. Thank you very much. Or there's no avenue for that. So let's call the vote. All in favor of the
main motion as amended.
Are we voting on the amendment?
We have voted on the amended motion.
No, we have to vote on the amendment currently. So the amendment, so the motion's on the floor, we have an amendment. Let's vote on the amendment. Is everyone clear what the amendment is, or would you like it reread? Okay, can we reread that? I'm sorry. Councillor Maynard, would you do the honors? Yes. Thank you. Sorry.
That item, that condition number 7, that be modified to include the following wording. The owner shall report a well pump test of the new wells constructed on each of the severed lots created through, and that will insert those numbers of the severance, while monitoring the drawdown rate of the existing wells located at the neighboring properties, and the staff will insert those property numbers. The drawdown rate of the studied well shall be demonstrated to have no adverse impact to the satisfaction of the hydrogeologist of Quinte Conservation Authority or other county assigned hydrogeologist.
Thank you. All in favor of the amendment? And that passes. So now we are voting on the main motion as amended. Everyone good?
I just have one comment.
Okay, Councillor Forrester.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Paul, looking at a picture, there is a barn here. I don't know whose barn it is, but there's a barn. Which side of the road are you looking at? Oh, I'm looking at this side of the phone. It's back on the south side, yeah. We think it's the south side. And it looks like there could be cows there.
So,
well, I'm saying, you don't have to stand up, sir. I'm just asking planning staff here, can you investigate this and find out if there's a barn there and there's cattle on there? Why do you want to do that? Because I'd like to see that. If that's on, just hold on. I'm asking Paul a question here. if there is a barn within that property, should there be an MDS on there? Because maybe nobody's seen it, but there is one here, so.
Through the chair, I think if you believe there is, we should investigate that. There should be an MDS done if there is a
Okay, is
barn
this
there.
also something you could do before council?
Through the chair, working with Brendan and the applicant and the neighbors, we can, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. So Madam Clerk, do we need to do a referral because of this, or can we go ahead and vote on the motion as amended, which and Steph will take our concerns? Thank you. Let's do that. Let's vote on the motion as amended. All in favor? And that passes with a 2/3 majority. Thank you. And yes, it still goes to council.
So, and sorry, Madam Chair, just to clarify that staff will provide further information at the October 22nd council meeting. At the October 22nd council meeting.
So that brings us to the other side of the street. So, once again, staff, do you have any further comment?
No, I don't.
And our the other side of the street's agent, Mr. O'Connor, you're back.
Thank you. Obviously, we are in agreement of the conditions. However, you're going to defer it, so you could do that as quickly as you want.
Straight away. Thank you very much. Which brings me to the motion. Shall we put it on the floor? Councillor Roberts, because it's in your hood. And, oh, sorry, we've got comments from, pardon me, come on up, Mr. Dolmage. We've got comments from the audience. Hello. Sorry about that.
Hello again. I wasn't allowed to speak on this before, so I'm going to bring it up now on number 5.5.
Perfect timing.
On number 5.5, when you suggested, sir, that in consultation with Brendan O'Connor, you discussed the wells and the 40 meter with him and the neighbors.
I went through him and then he spoke with you. Sorry.
Well, the first time that I heard about 40 meters apart was when I spoke with Brendan a couple days ago, and it's written in here, and nobody came to me or any of the other neighbors, as far as I know, and said that we anticipate the wells to be 40 meters apart. I just want to clarify that. That's all.
Thank you.
But everything else that I said before applies to 5.5. Thank you.
Yes, I think we understand. Thank you very much. So, there is another person who would like to comment on this. Come on up.
My name is Dee Hazel. I live in Hillier. My concern is death by 1,000 cuts. Once again, we are severing building lots off of farmland. Agriculture is huge in this county, and if we do much more severing, there ain't going to be much farmland left. Tourism is huge also. People don't want to come to the county driving down roads, looking at bungalows they see in Scarborough every day. We really have to protect our farmland, so slow down the building. There's no such thing as sustainable development. We're going to run out of everything, and yeah. That's it. Questions? Comments?
Thank you very much. Okay, are there any further comments? Thank you. So, shall we go straight ahead with the deferral? Okay. Well, we've got the motion. Councillor Roberts.
I'll second
it. I think it was seconded. Did we have a seconder already?
Sorry, Madam Chair, I do not have a seconder written down.
Councillor Prinzin.
Get it on the floor.
Yep.
This is a Roberts-Prinzin motion that the report of the Development Services dated October 16, 2019 regarding consent file numbers here. Numbers B46-19, B47-19 zoning bylaw amendment file number Z4619 be received, The consent file numbers B4619, B47-19, 2693773 Ontario Inc. for lands located in Part Lot 3, Plan 2, Gore B, Part 3, 47R 8796, Ward 6 of Firesburg, be approved subject to the following conditions. And they are once again 1 through 12. And the zoning amendment file number Z4619, 2693 773 Ontario Inc. for lands located in Part Lot 3, Plan 2, Gore B, Part 3, 47R8, 796, Ward 6 of Firesburg be approved.
Thank you. Councillor Maynard.
This is appropriate time. We'll put the amendment on, similar to the last one. If I can get a seconder, and I will read that. The condition number 7 of the the condition number 7 of the staff report be modified to include the addition of the following wording. The owner shall report a well pump test of the new wells constructed in each of the severed lots created through, did I write them down this time? B4619 and B4719, while monitoring the drawdown rate of the existing wells located at the neighboring properties. Addresses to be inserted by staff. That the drawdown rate of the studied well shall be demonstrated to have no adverse impacts to the satisfaction of the hydrogeologist of Quinte Conservation Authority or other county assigned hydrogeologist.
Okay, and you would like to second Councillor Forster? Okay, so Councillor Forster is seconding. Councillor Roberts?
Just a remark, we would also be looking for the same investigation on the same farm structure as well. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments? Okay, all in favor? And again, that 2/3 majority, yep. Still going forward. Yes, it's going forward to October 22nd. Thank you. Okay, on to item 5.6. And item 5.6, Marcian Vermander and Linda Vermander. Hello. Do staff have any further comments on this file?
Through the chair, we have no further comments on this file.
Thank you. And the applicant is here. Would you like to step up to the mic and state your name and your address and let us know if the conditions are acceptable?
Which button do I try?
The red one.
The red one?
Big red one.
Like that?
Yep.
Okay. Marcien, or better known as Mark Vermander. I live at 279 Mitchell's Crossroad with my wife Linda. I'm here to speak to some of these conditions. If you're familiar with the property, which I think Mr. Nyman, Councillor Nyman is, I'm looking at number 5, condition number 5. And it says the lot grading and drainage plan for each lot as prepared by a professional engineer or an Ontario land surveyor, OLS, excuse me, and thorough knowledge in the design and construction of drainage matters. So we're addressing the drainage on the said property, correct? If you're looking at Mitchell's Crossroad on the map, and you go from, we'll say, the south side of the property, which would be Mitchell's Crossroad, and going north into the wetland, there's natural drainage. I designed that severance for the center severance line to be on a swale that's been there since the Fuchs were given that property. They were German mercenaries historically, were given that property. And there's no way that that property can be drained other than naturally, because it's bedrock. It's solid bedrock. There may be 8 inches of soil, if that. On the left side of the property, which is being severed off, that was all scraped down and used and sold to the county about 25 years ago when they rebuilt Mitchell's Crossroad. So I can't see making another ditch. The wetland in the back fills up in the spring, comes out a little bit, then recedes back into the back. Just a natural flow of water. To the west side of the property, where it ends down in the bottom corner, right about there on Mitchell's Crossroad, there is subsidence happening on Mitchell's Crossroad where a culvert was taken out when the property was rebuilt, when the road was rebuilt. So therefore, that impedes drainage going across the road off into the Black River Marsh, which is across the road. So to have a professional engineer come over and take a look, and I incur the extra cost of something that cannot be altered, I think is a little bit unreasonable. That's all I'm saying. Do I have to incur the cost of someone coming over, taking a look at it, says, yeah, the water goes that way? I have a degree in environmental geography and land resource management. I've taken courses in hydrology, geology, geomorphology. I understand the lay of the land. I'm just saying that in some of these stipulations, there are cost burdens that are unnecessary. And that's what I'm concerned about. And also, to address number 6, this one is a question. The applicant shall convey a 10-meter wide drainage easement along the east property line of the severed lot between the public right-of-way and wetland watercourse. Where is the public right-of-way on that property?
That would be the road.
Okay. A 10-meter wide drain on the east property line. So now I'm not quite sure. I'm looking at the north arrow. So the road is considered east property line, or is that the south property line? The east property line would be between the existing lot and the lot next door, correct?
Would staff like to comment on this? Yeah, with the pointer.
Through the chair, normally it would be on the west boundary of the property between the road going back.
This is south. That would be east, up and down this side.
So, Mr. Coffey?
Not quite following you here. Why do I have to give away 10 meters drainage easement?
Yeah, through the chair, it would be on the boundary of the property on the east side of the severed portion. Running from the public road.
This here?
Correct, yes.
That line going here?
Yes.
Okay, so there would have to be, I would have to give 10 meters from there to there? Or on the east side, off of my property? 30 feet, 33 feet?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, so that's where the existing swale is. That's been there 100 years.
So, Mr.
Has someone come out and looked at the property?
Mr. Vermander, let's just ask staff for an overview so that you can get a clearer picture of...
Okay, I can always make an appointment and do it again. All right, so I'm okay with that. Now, for number 7, my question is, the owner applies for and obtains an entrance permit. I'm okay with that. When I went into the planning department and I asked, well, where should I put the entrance? And they said, that's up to you. You know the property the best. The purpose of severing is to sell it because I'm retiring at the end of the month and I'd like to get some more money for retirement. If I go to sell it, the people who want to build their new home on it, what if they don't like where I put the entrance?
Okay, and are there further concerns that you would like to bring, or can we go to staff and get an overview and perhaps get a clearer picture?
Okay, that's all my
Thank you very much, Mr. Vermander.
Thank you very much.
So could staff comment on that at this time?
Through the chair, just Just a general comment. We hadn't had any conversation like that with the applicant up until this point, so it's not ideal to do it on the fly, but I'd be happy to have a conversation with Mr. Vermander, following the meeting to go over the conditions in more detail. The purpose of the swale is to ensure that the municipality in the future has a drainage easement over or in between these two lots. It's a fairly standard condition that we ask for when there is a drainage concern along the road. The entrance permit itself is another condition that is required prior to the stamping of a deed. And the lot itself is 70 meters or so in width, and anybody in the future who purchases the property will have to deal with the entrance that they have, or otherwise there is a mechanism that they can go through to apply to change that. And then I can't recall the other issue that was
Those were the two outstanding issues. The drainage plan, whether
the drain, yeah. So, and the drainage plan, again, similar to the previous application that we talked about at the start. It is a concern in the county, so it is something that we've been asking for most severance applications. This particular application is not as large as the 80 or so acre piece that we were speaking about earlier. This one's about 10 acres, and the development is likely to be closer to the road in this case, so it is warranted.
Thank you. And these are roughly all very standard.
That is correct. Yes.
Okay, thank you. So, shall we put this on the floor? Would anyone? Thank you, Councillor Nyman, and seconded by Councillor Bailey.
Councillor Nyman Bailey motion that the report of development services dated October 16, 2019 regarding consent file number B6119 and zoning bylaw amendment file number Z5619 be received. The consent file number B6119, Marcian Vermander, Linda Vermander, for lands located at Part Lot 3, Concession 2, north of Black River, Part 1, 47R 5023, Ward 8, North Marysburg, be approved, subject to the following conditions 1 through 12. That zoning amendment file number Z5619, Marcian Vermander and Linda Vermander, for lands located on Part Lot 3, Concession 2, north of Black River, Part 1, 47R 5023, Ward 8, North Marysburg, be approved. And I have a question.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So, Mr. Vermander is right. I was out there a few years ago, probably 3. Had a look around. He took me around the property, and I had a good look. And the land, I mean, what he explained is the way it is. Now, I'm not an engineer, and I don't want anyone to believe that I am, but I mean, I can see the lay of the land just as well as anybody. So, has staff went out to look at the land?
Through the chair, we have done a site inspection of the property, yes.
Okay. So, if I can follow up, I think his comment about number 5 is warranted, and I'd like to see if I get a seconder to have number 5 removed. And again, it's 10 acres, and when it comes to building a house, I mean, we don't know where the house is going to be. So at that time, that's when we can ask to have the site plan or the site, the grading done, because it's all going to change anyways. As soon as you put a building in there, the grading, the land, the lay of the land is going to all change, and that's when we should be asking for it. I guess that's the problem I'm having. So if I can get a seconder, I'd like to remove number 5.
Councillor Bailey will second. So would anyone like to speak to this amendment? Councillor Forster.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, you know, a moment ago, we just heard a lady come up and talk about how we're selling off our land. We're losing lots, we're losing farmland. And every time a severance or something comes forward, we try to make it easier for this to happen. Let's take the conditions that are standard. We don't need an engineer's report. And then we've had to come back many times, 5 years later. Well, nobody thought about that. Well, we didn't look at it that carefully. So sometimes I think when we have the chance to look at it, we should be taking the time to investigate it properly. And, you know, I know councillors won't look at properties. Landowners say, well, trust me, it's the only way it can go. But if I was severing off a lot, I'd say the exact same thing too. That's why we have some of the engineers out there, and that's why we have our planning staff who sort of following good planning recommendations. So in this case here, I'm okay with the way the recommendations are. I'm a little surprised to hear that this was the first, there were so many questions. I usually like to see, you know, applicants come in to see planning staff have these discussions ahead of time. I'd do two things: accept it the way it is, or defer it for 2 weeks, a month, and talk about behind the scenes and get all these things straightened out. So I guess a quick question for the applicant out there. Are you a little more informed now about what's going on?
I'm absolutely more informed because I never received this in hard copy. It wasn't emailed to me. I got this today when I got here. I had to look.
Thank you.
Okay. I looked up the report.
Then I have a quick question for him because this is important. Would you be?
Can you step up to the mic then?
Because I'm very much concerned to put a motion on to defer this so you guys can talk, if that's what you want me to do.
No.
Okay,
I'm
thank
good.
you. That's all
I'm
I need
good.
to hear. Okay.
I'm good.
Thank you.
It's all about water today.
Okay, we still have an amendment on the floor. Do you still want to pursue the amendment? Okay, so
Yes.
could we have the wording of that amendment? Thank you.
So the motion to amend is to amend condition 5 by removing it in its entirety.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, Councillor Maynard.
As we get into a little bit smaller parcels, I have a harder time, you know, in a large parcel. This one is, you know, a medium-sized parcel. There may not be any drainage, you know, it might be what it is, but every time you put something on that piece of property, you're going to change the drainage. So if it means, if there's no dirt there and you have to dig a hole in the rock to contain the water on your lot, I think the applicant needs to be aware that if we remove that it will not pass, that it won't pass this evening, that it'll be extended. So if we were to remove that condition, this will not, as soon as we change the staff recommendation, it will not be final this evening. So you'll have to wait a little longer.
Whenever there's an amendment, it goes forward to the next council meeting, is
right.
To clarify.
And
I'll pull that motion.
You're okay?
I'm okay.
Okay, so the amendment is.
Thank you.
Thank you. The amendment is off the floor. Can we vote on the main motion? Are we good to go? Okay, good. We're good to go. All in favor of the motion? Thank you. That passes with 2/3 majority. So now on to 5.7. 5.7, there's actually a small amendment for item 6. Item 6, staff would like to return to their original language. So it will read, a 1-foot reserve is to be established along the full frontage of County Road 3 and the existing entrance into severed lot number 3, B79-18 shall be closed. Is everyone clear? Okay, would you, what's that? We'll get the overview. Okay, this is 5.7. So 5.7, this is the OPA, the official plan amendment for 2443980 Ontario Limited. That's 88 Heritage Estates Drive. So staff, could we get an overview? Or at least comments regarding the re-amended amendment, which I believe can be a friendly amendment tonight?
Yes, through the chair. We'd asked for a condition that a 1-foot reserve be placed along County Road 3, and this would encourage all entrances that are being approved as part of this development to be off Heritage Estates Drive. And I was not aware until today, actually, that there was an existing entrance on County Road 3, and so the applicant's agent and myself discussed it this morning and determined that the best approach to handle the existing entrance in light of the 1-foot reserve request was to add this wording in at the end of condition 6. This states that the existing entrance into the severed lot, which is lot number 3, would be closed. So that's the amending condition.
Thank you. I suspect not very controversial. Madam Clerk, can we just go ahead and...
We should do the process.
Okay. Could you advise? So an actual proper full-on amendment?
So staff have recommended this amendment as a friendly amendment to committee. And so on the floor, it would be this motion with a slight amendment. And we'll start the process having agent come up, so forth.
Thank you. So we don't need to do anything with it right now. Perfect. Thank you very much. So staff has commented on that. Is there anything else you would like to add regarding this file at all?
Through the chair, I appreciate it. It is a bit of a complicated file. There's an official plan amendment which is exempting the applicant from certain conditions in the official plan that relate to a 2 severance maximum policy. The amendment itself would allow for the creation of 3 new lots as opposed to 2. So there'll be 3 lots plus a retained total of 4 lots being created here. The original intent of this property, from my understanding, was that it was to take place through a plan of subdivision, and that a plan of subdivision had been approved for the lands to the west of Heritage Estates Drive. However, that was some time ago, and there have been planning applications filed within recent years that has prevented a plan of subdivision from moving ahead in a more, to allow for a more comprehensive development. So that the opportunity for that not exist today. Particularly where I'm referring to lands on the east, just to the east, and that are accessed off Underdonk Lane. So the intent of this application, the intent of the OPA and the severance applications would allow for 3 new lots on lands that would normally require a plan of subdivision. However, in this case, we've justified it by saying that it's an infill development. There will be no further severances, no further opportunities for severances on this property. And so because of that and a number of studies that the applicant has provided, there's enough justification to amend the official plan to allow the 3 severances and to approve the consent applications as presented.
Thank you. Is the applicant or agent present? Hi.
Good evening, Sean Legere, Senior Planner with RFA Planning Consultant. I'm the agent for this application. We've reviewed the staff report and we actually assisted staff in preparing the OPA document and amending bylaws, so we're satisfied with that. I do have one little comment that is a friendly comment in regards to number 6. I've been contemplating that while we've been listening to all the proceedings, and when Matt and I spoke earlier today about number 6 and the entrance off County Road 3, I did express the concern from my client about the closing. So I think I would like to start with a question, maybe directed towards staff. I presume that not every entrance permit guarantees an approval, so that's sort of my question, or just confirmation of that, that if the answer is no, there is no guarantee, then I have a friendly amendment to the wording to make that work better.
Thank you. Can we hear from staff?
Sorry, could you perhaps clarify that?
The question is first, and I presume the answer, but my question remains, if you apply for an entrance permit, are you guaranteed an entrance?
I would presume so, yes. If you've been granted an entrance permit, you have an entrance.
No. If you apply for an entrance, are you guaranteed an entrance?
No.
So I would like to bring forth a friendly amendment or friendly wording change to number 6 as follows.
Madam Clerk, is that acceptable?
Yes.
What's that? Proposed. Yes.
Yes. Yeah, of course.
So a 1-foot reserve is to be established along the full frontage of County Road 3 and the existing entrance to be closed upon approval of a new entrance on Heritage Estate Drive for consent file number 79-18. Again, if we're establishing a 1-foot reserve and requiring the removal of that existing entrance, that it's tied into the new entrance. So if that new entrance is not approved, that original entrance could remain so the lot could gain access. The concern is that we're removing an entrance while not having, so basically,
Understood, yes.
ensuring access for the property.
That's the backup plan. Would you comment on that?
Yeah, so I think we could accept that wording. The intent of the condition is to encourage the entrance on Heritage Estates Drive. So that's where we want the entrance, so
you're very comfortable with this wording?
Right.
Okay.
And it is preferred to be off Heritage Estate. The owner very much agrees with that.
Thank you. And Madam Clerk, you've got the wording?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments?
No, Madam Chair.
Otherwise comfortable with the condition?
We are otherwise in concurrence.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So does anyone in the audience have any comments or questions regarding this file? No? Good. Shall we put it on the floor, Madam Clerk? So we've got, Councillor Maynard, would you like to move this? And Councillor St. Jean? Oh, you have a question regarding?
Yes, you didn't. Sorry, Madam Chair, you didn't ask council members if we had questions.
Oh, no, I did not. Thank you. Does anyone have questions? Thank you. Questions or comments for the applicant?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. To the applicant, who is number 2443980? Given the complexities of this particular severance and consent, I'd just like to know who we're dealing with.
Yeah, certainly. The owner actually currently resides on Heritage Estate Drive. Her name is Catherine Langlois.
Okay, thank you. And now, Councillor Maynard, did you have a question or comment, or did you want to move this? Yeah. So, and a seconder? Councillor Bullock. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. Maynard Bullock motion that the report of the Development Services dated October 16, 2019 regarding official plan amendment number OPA 6-2018, OPA number 79, consent files B77-18, B78-18, B79-18, and zoning bylaw amendment file number Z6518 be received. That official plan amendment number OPA 6-2018, OPA number 79, 2443980, Ontario Inc. for lands located in Part Lot 86, Concession 1, Part 9 and 10, 47R 1422, ST and TWPE 156283, Ward 4, Ameliasburg be approved, that the consent files B77-18, B78, 18, B79, 18, 2443980, Ontario Inc. for lands located in Part Lot 66, Concession 1, Part 9, 10, 47R 1422, ST and TWPE 156283, Ward 4, Ameliasburg be approved, subject to the following conditions, and that would be 1 through 12. And because these are just the number 6 and the friendly, they were staff approved, so they'll just go in there.
Right in.
Sorry, and I believe they're 1 to 15.
Oh, sorry. Yep, there's a break there. Yeah, my apologies. Yeah, 1 to 15.
With the amendment.
With the staff recommended changes, can we call it?
Yes.
Instead of amendment? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. And that zoning amendment file Z65-18 2443980 Ontario Inc. for lands located in Part Lot 86, Concession 1, Part 9 and 10, 47R 1422, ST and TWPE 156283, Ward 4, Ameliasburg be approved.
Phew, thank you. Okay. Questions or comments? No. All in favor? And that passes with a 2/3 majority. Thank you. And that brings us to 5.8. 5.8 is the we need to, it's been 2 hours and 20 minutes. Sorry, 2 hours and 20 minutes. It just seems like 3 hours. So
we need a motion to extend past 3 hours.
Which Councillor Prinzen would, sorry, 3 hours. Oh, okay, sorry. So there,
I'll do it whenever.
Thank you. He'll do it whenever though. So the referral motion is next, 5.8. So was this one still, we're still doing this tonight? Yeah, okay.
Yes, so
okay.
Sorry, through you,
So
Madam
this is
Chair.
the supplemental report for Thomas McAvoy.
Yes, so this item was referred, so the referral, the supplemental report with recommendations is there if it's carried with 2/3.
Yep.
Then the following motion 5.9 could be carried as well with those amendments.
Thank you. So does staff have comments regarding this item?
No further comments, Madam Chair. I think the report speaks for itself.
Thank you. And is the agent or applicant present?
Good evening, everybody. I'm Nicole McAvoy. I'm Tom's wife. I hope it's okay if I come up here. I'm part of this too.
Yes.
Okay, great. So our initial plan for the property was to renovate the farmhouse that's there, to live there and start a family. The plan has changed over time. We first purchased the property in December of 2016 and realized after consulting with contractors and engineers that the house is not economically feasible to repair that was with great disappointment. Our only option now is to build a new house, which entails severing. We have had the property since 2016 and have waited a long time to have our turn to speak to council. We would like to move ahead in our construction and begin living there as soon as we can. We do have a baby on the way, and we are quickly outgrowing our tiny house.
I'd just like to make a couple of further comments. You can understand my motivation to try to move this forward as quickly as possible. Since the last meeting, we've spoken with some of our neighbors because we do recognize that there is some concerns in the county when it comes to water supply. So I don't want to minimize other people's concerns. It's not for me to do that. What we have done is a significant amount of surveying work on the property to really show that there's going to be adequate setbacks. So we had an application before us earlier tonight for a request for 40-meter setback. The setback that we're proposing is 164 meters from an existing well to another existing well. And the setback on the other lot, the east lot, is going to be well over 200 meters. So with that being said, and also considering that we've got this amendment on the table where we've agreed to, or we will be agreeing to, monitors our neighbors' wells, I don't believe in everybody. So I've spoken with a number of hydrogeologists about this issue and setbacks and what is standard and required. I've spoken with Mark Boone. I've spoken a lot with Paul, and I do appreciate staff time in addressing this issue. But I also appreciate people's concerns. What recourse do they have? This has been brought up. So we're proposing that as we put new wells and we're affecting the water table, that will monitor the drawdown of adjacent neighbors' wells, so it should not be, as the condition states, it's not going to be negatively affected to the hydrogeologist's recommendations, I guess is the scope. We would like to proceed with this as quickly as possible. I have a number of conditions. I think we've got more conditions than some of the other severances that have been in front of us, including site plan that I've completed at some expense, drainage plans that we're going to complete, and entrances and buffering and so on. So we're proposing larger lots as well than the neighboring. We've got 2 hectares and 1.8 hectares, but we also have extreme setbacks, and we have addressed MDS as well. I should mention that because it was mentioned earlier. So my neighbors across the street have a barn, and it was used in the past to house animals, and my neighbors to the east of me also have a barn that was used to house animals. Neither one of those are in operation anymore, but I don't want to prevent them from using them into the future. So we are honoring some pretty large MDS setbacks for the footprints, which are on our site plan as well. So I guess what I would say, just to conclude, happy to address any questions from council or the audience, but would like to proceed, and will agree to do the test as it was, or agree to the condition as it was stated within the agenda.
Thank you. Are there any questions from council for the applicants? No, thank you. Thank you very much. Would anyone in the room like to speak to the matter? Come on up. Come on up and sign in and state your name.
It's on? Oh, hi there, good evening. And I sign in here somewhere?
Yes.
Okay. One sec. I am representing myself. My name is Carol Love. And I, along with my husband Joe, own the neighboring property at 2060 County Road 1. Firstly, I would like to thank the county and the council for their further investigation regarding these hydrogeological studies and testing in response to our public comments and concerns last month. The modifications to condition number 7 of the September staff report outline that the owner shall report a well pump test of the new wells constructed while monitoring the drawdown rate of the existing wells on our properties. The intention of this testing is to demonstrate no adverse impacts to existing wells to the satisfaction of the Quinte Conservation Authority's hydrogeologist. But in order to ensure relevant testing parameters, I would suggest that testing be performed during a time of year that will give an accurate indication of drawdown issues. All 3 of the wells on Mr. McAvoy's property should be included in the tests. That is, the 2 new wells and the 1 existing well. And the tests should occur between July and October. The neighbors would also certainly appreciate adequate notice of testing dates as a matter of common courtesy. I want to thank you for involving us in this process and responding to our concern about our existing water sources. I assume, especially given all of the comments this evening, that it is easy for anyone to understand why this is important to every one of the neighbors in our little rural residential community along County Road 1. Your public forum process, newspaper postings, and the practice of late mailings to concerned neighbors is difficult for many of us. The suggestion seems to be that if we're unable to attend or don't receive adequate notification in time about the agenda items on the planning meeting, that we no longer maintain our right to object. I humbly suggest we should only have to request that we be kept apprised of an application's progress once, not multiple times. And in this day and age of electronic messaging, email would seem to be the swiftest and most logical way to communicate with us. Just my own humble opinion. In conclusion, and as a point of interest, I personally would like to know who would be liable and to what extent if we were to lose our water sources due to the county granting new severances. And I believe you answered that earlier. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments for this speaker? No, thank you very much. So next, hello.
Hello.
Come on up and sign in if you haven't already. Great.
I've signed in.
Thank you.
My name is Lorraine Weiss. I live across from where Mr. McAvoy has proposed his new home. This is the first I've heard that he has proposed a new home. He hasn't introduced himself to me or come to me at all to address any of my concerns, but that's okay. We'll do it here. Our little area is not a village. In a village or a town, every small lot we build a house on to increase the density of the village or the town. This is a rural area. If you know the area at all, you will see that what is proposed is house after house after house after house. This is in the country. The original property was a farm. And in the old days, the county councils or the municipalities would say, we'll grant you a severance because your son or daughter is going to live there, or to supplement an income. We'll sever a lot. This appears to be, in many cases, a chance for people to make money. It's speculation. I think if Mr. McAvoy had come and said, we're building a new home, we're going to tear down that old house and we're building a new home, we're going to sever one lot to kind of help us out with the expenses. But no, he has to have 2 lots plus the other one. And it was a farm. This original farm has been severed at least 10 times. This has been the only opportunity I've had a chance to speak to that. But anyways, as far as the water goes, that's a great idea, testing everybody's, like the drawdown test. But it has to be done during July, August, or September. To do it in May is totally irrelevant. To do it any other time of the year is totally irrelevant. It doesn't show anything. Right now is when our water is low. It has been low since about the 1st of July. The sulfur smell has started about the 1st of July. So that's when we start seeing problems. To do it in May would mean nothing. I want to also be assured that there will be no blasting. That is one line I do not want crossed. I know everybody says blasting is the way they do it now it doesn't bother anything. Those studies have been funded by mining corporations. if you look at, I went through and I tried to find one that was done by or funded by anybody but a mining corporation. I couldn't find one. If there are some out there, great. But I don't like the idea of blasting. That's what destroyed my well in the first place. The 3 wells across the road were blasted. Then we lost our water and our quality. Our sulfur started coming in. And to kind of go along with what Carol said, nobody, no matter how many, when you put out these severances, like one after another, I heard this evening, and this is only one evening, who's going to be held accountable? When there are 3 or 4 houses along the stretch of road and there's no water, or the water is so bad you can't drink it, there's nobody we can turn to. The value of our house goes down. Our quality of life is eroded. So I'm asking the council to really think about what's happening. And in this case, I think the 2 things that I want to be very, very strong about is when these tests are done and that there is to be no blasting. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there questions or comments for the speaker? And, well, no, hang on. Would you be able to briefly comment on the concern that was just raised? Or was it you?
Through the chair. So some of the concerns that I've noted here, that the well should be tested at a certain time of year. I thought there is that really should be up to the hydrogeologist. Mark Boone is very aware of that being a significant issue for hydrogeological studies. I think he can have that discretion. It's not a new issue. It'll be fairly foremost in his mind. So I think if we can rely on the hydrogeologist and their expertise on that issue, then I think we should be fine that way.
Thank you.
As well as the blasting issue. Yeah.
Thank you. And this will be the last severance possible on that parcel, obviously. Correct? Yes. Thank you. Okay. So any further comments from the audience? You've already spoken. I don't know if you're allowed to speak again. Is Mr. McAvoy allowed to speak again? Yes. Yeah.
If council wishes him to come up to ask him questions.
Okay. Not at this time, I don't believe. Is that correct? Thank you. Councillor Maynard, and seconded by Councillor Prinzen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to thank the McAvoys for really going that extra mile and agreeing to this well testing. That the report of the Development Services dated September 18, 2019 regarding consent files number B4819, B4919, and zoning bylaw amendment file number Z4819 be received. The consent files number B4819, B4919, and Z4919 Thomas McAvoy for lands located at 2018 County Road 1, described as Part Lot 4, registers compiled Plan 29, Part 3, 47R 4603, Ward of Bloomfield Hallowell be approved subject to the following conditions. 1 through... Am I on the wrong motion?
Yes.
Sorry.
Back up 1.
Sorry, I'm one ahead.
It's dealing with the supplementary report.
My apologies. That the paper's better sometimes. Sorry. That the supplemental report of the Development Services dated October 16th, 2019 regarding consent files number B4819 and B4919 and zoning bylaw amendment file Z4819 be received. That condition number 7 of the September 18, 2019 staff report be modified to include the addition of the following wording. that the owner shall report a well pump test of the new wells constructed on each of the severed lots created through B4919 and B4919 while monitoring the drawdown rate of the existing wells located at 2083 County Road 1, 2060 County Road 1, and 2080 County Road 1. The drawdown rate of the studied wells shall be demonstrated to have no adverse impacts to the satisfaction of the hydrogeologist of Quinte Conservation Authority or other county-assigned hydrogeologists. The staff report for the Development Services dated September 18, 2019, regarding consent file number B48-19 and B49-19, as revised through the modification of Condition 7 and zoning bylaw amendment file number Z48-19, as revised through an addendum to the October 16th, 2019 report being Schedule 1 revised be approved.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bullock.
Just a quick question for staff, and I think there might be a typo in this. In that modified condition 7, it says B4919 and B4919. Should that read 4819 and 4919?
That's correct.
Okay. Just ask Madam Clerk to make that.
Actually, through you, Madam Chair, we actually have this in the minute, that it's 48 and 49. I'm not sure how that happened, but it is corrected. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Roberts.
Thank you. Just for my education, where do the studied wells reports go when they're done, and who has access to them?
So the pumping tests, for example, so what kind of report would be generated from this?
Mm-hmm. And where does it go?
It would go to the file. And so we'd be relying again on the hydrogeologist who's on the site monitoring the wells to report back. It might be simply in the version of an email or a brief memo indicating what was observed and why there is satisfaction with the outcome. If so.
Supplemental. So if we're accepting staff's advice that the discretion of the hydrologist will deal with the timing of the testing and what month, et cetera, how will we know that that has actually occurred?
We aren't actually giving in terms of reference to the hydrogeologist. We are relying on their expertise. I believe there are some MOE guidelines talking about the timing or the seasonality of the pumping tests, and experienced hydrogeologists can make that adjustment in the field. They might be able to say that the static level of the well should be assumed to be another meter lower if that's appropriate for the time of year. So they'll look at storage capacity of the wells and perhaps assume that the static level is lower at other times of year when it's drier, and still be able to calculate the total storage capacity of the well and its overall recovery rate during the period of time that's needed to supply a domestic household. So there's a lot of moving parts on this, and a hydrogeologist can account for those things.
Can I try it one more time?
Go for it.
So the only two people under that scenario that know what the test results are and when the test results were taken are the hydrologist and the staff person receiving the report?
Well, presumably there'll be other communication with the landowner and the people whose well is being monitored. I mean, the hydrogeologist will have to be on both sites, and all parties involved at the time.
So presumably?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, I'll be relying on the professionalism of the hydrogeologist in doing an adequate report.
I think Councillor Forster would like a crack at this.
Well, yeah, I'm going to continue on from what Bill was talking about here. Okay, we had a whole lot of discussion. Running out of water is a concern. Basically, that's what we're looking at. So now we're doing reports, there's well monitoring. This lady's well here goes dry. What happens? Because that's what our concern is. I want to know now what happens. Because she's going to call us, and, well, that's up to the hydrogeologist, and, well, we're not really sure they're going to talk it out. I want to know now what steps we're going to put in place if we're going to allow this severance to go forward. And I know there's other places, I'm not going to give their names now. If that well comes out, they're now forced to bring in water by water trucks, fill up those wells. So I want to know if those wells go dry, what's put in place. Because we would have went all through this just to have reports written and sent off. So that's the question I think that Bill wants to hear the answer to, and I want to hear the answer to, and probably everybody else. If not, this is just a waste of time.
To the chair, I guess if during the drawdown test, the hydrogeologist observes that the impacted well goes dry, then he can't advise that there's been no adverse impacts. And if that test fails, and then the consent fails. There's no house drying on the well, yeah. Then there won't be a house using that well and drying it down on a regular basis.
This is ongoing testing.
It's a one-time deal.
One-time. So if we do sorry. I'm just concerned that we're doing a bare minimum here just to, this will make everybody feel good. If at one point one of the wells shows low water levels, or what happens in the second year? So this is the first year it's good, the second year it's not good. Is there anything that we can put into place that ensures like up to a 5-year period, because who knows what's going to happen after that, that if the wells go dry in year 2, that there's some responsibility? Just question.
No, I don't think there's really, I've never experienced an ongoing monitoring program of a domestic well of a small scale nature that's being considered in this application. I think that the drawdown test will be sufficient and the storage capacity of the wells will be calculable, and what a domestic household consumes is predictable, generally speaking, at 450 liters per day per capita. So, although it's much less now with conservation devices, but I think the straight shot and the most direct thing is the drawdown test, and that will be very strong evidence.
Councillor Maynard?
I would just say that having a hydro G test is a pretty, it's really above and beyond what was recommended by staff, especially on lots and distances from wells, and the hydrogeologist will factor in and they will prepare a report, and that's pretty good confirmation that the wells will be good, but things could change and it could have nothing to do with the neighboring wells. So I just think.
Thank you. Any further concerns, comments? And Councillor Roberts, did you get an adequate answer to what you were going for, which I think was? For now. For now? Okay, thank you. Okay. Oh, we have it on the floor. All in favor? And that carries with a 2/3 majority, more than. So, and on to the next, which relates, 5.9. Well, here we go again. Staff, any further comments on 5.9 now? The related item on the agenda.
Through the chair, I don't believe there was any further comments.
Thank you. And the applicant, would you like to comment at this time? Or
we're at 5.9.
We're 5.9. So on Thomas.
We're at Thomas still.
We're at 5. We're at 5.9 still. Yes.
Yes, Madam Chair, it is 5.9.
Yes.
So originally, Council brought the supplement or Staff brought the supplemental report, voted on that, and now we vote on the main motion with the addition of that clause that you've just approved.
Yes. So, Thomas, you might want to stick around. This is still your item. So 2 items. Nope, you're still here. You might want to be. So once again, we're at item 5.9. This also relates to the last matter. So you have another opportunity to comment on item 5.9 on your agenda. First, the staff has clarified there's nothing to add at this time. So the applicant is free to speak if you would like.
We'll just agree to the terms as they've been written.
Thank you very much. And would anyone in the room like to speak to this item? Great. So now, can we get Councillor Margetson is going to move this. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Roberts, thank you very much.
So Margetson Roberts motion that the report of development services dated September 18th, 2019 regarding consent files numbers B4819 and B4919 and zoning bylaw amendment file number Z48-19 be received. That consent files number B4819, B4919, and Z49-19 Tom McAvoy for lands located at 2018 County Road number 1, described as Part Lot 4, Registered Compile Plan 29, Part 347R 4603, Ward of Bloomfield, Hallowell, be approved subject to the following conditions 1 through 12, and that zoning amendment file number Z48-19 Thomas McAvoy for lands located at 2018 County Road number 1, described as Part Lot 4, Registered Compiled Plan 29, Part 347R 4603, Ward of Bloomfield, Hallowell, be approved.
Thank you. Questions or comments? Yes, Councillor Prinzen.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome.
Paul, this is to you. After this last meeting, I went home, I guess the next day I drove by that way, and you got the barn at 2004 in the MDS. Just outside of this picture, as I brought to your attention a month ago, there's another barn. Not in the MDS. Did you look into it? Did you? Because what I'm worried about is that MDS of that other barn, because it sits farther back, taking out the back part of the severed lot of the McAvoys on one of their severed lots on the east side. So I brought this up, and I just want to see if you looked into it or what. Thanks.
To the chair, the original plan with the file had done some work on that barn and all the MDSs in that area, but I have to be honest with you, I haven't followed up again to see exactly what they did with that MDS calculation.
So on that, then I won't be supporting it tonight.
So at this time, I think we would require an investigation, would we, or to, what's that?
You can vote on it if someone wants to vote on it.
We can. Do you want to propose?
I'm not.
You're not? Okay. Can we ask the applicant?
No, you don't need to ask him nothing.
Well, it'd be interesting to find out. Hang on. Is everyone clear where the barn is that's being discussed?
this is what he was trying to say. Yes. And that's why I brought it to him a month ago.
Mayor Ferguson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just to staff, so to be clear, there is an unidentified barn that is going to, or is subject to MDS?
That's what Councillor Prinzen has indicated. Whether it's a livestock structure or a forage barn or a machine shed, I don't know, but I know the previous planner on the file did investigate all the adjacent barns that would have an influence.
Okay.
But I didn't follow up specifically with Councillor Prinzen's inquiry.
Okay.
So can you actually show us on the diagram where, if you recall where that barn is, could you show us on the diagram?
I believe it's, I don't recall exactly which barn.
Okay.
It was very, quick conversation and I don't recall.
It's back a lane, yeah.
Okay, is it to the northeast?
Yeah, it's back along driveway, Paul. It's an old farmstead back north.
Northeast?
Yeah, it's back a long lane off the County Road 1.
Up off the diagram.
Mayor Ferguson again?
Just to follow up, I think we've got to have accurate information before we can make a decision on this. And, I think we're going to have to defer this item until we receive that information.
So that's...
I've got correspondence talking about this MDS setback, so I don't know what's exactly going on here.
Kim,
And that's
you know what? Come on up to the mic and let's hear. So regarding this particular barn.
I was asked regarding this particular barn. It far exceeds the 200-meter setback that I'm currently having to adhere to the property that's directly in my property line. We're talking about 250 meters plus, and for a smaller structure. So I looked at that footprint, because I appreciate you brought this point up, because Paul, I recognize you're dealing with a lot. He did reach out to me about this property, and I showed him, we did the satellite, we did the radius, because it's over 250 meters. It's the one that's set right back up on the road on the hill, right? Paul did talk to me about this.
Sorry, but when I asked a month ago for more clarification, I haven't got it. So, in all fairness, I have to answer myself. So I will not support it for those reasons.
Thank you. Would anyone like to put forward anything regarding this? I heard Mayor Ferguson mention deferral, and.
Well, I'd just like to ask, can this come to the council meeting on Tuesday night? Yeah. You can verify by then. So. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so. Mayor Ferguson?
So, Madam Clerk, is this a referral to get more information leading to the council meeting on Tuesday, or
this is a referral?
What are we doing?
This is a referral.
Okay.
Oh.
Do we need a motion for that, or what do we need to do?
Yes,
or we're asking for more info.
Yes, we will do a referral motion, similar to the first one, so that staff provide further information regarding
the MDS setback for the barn to the northeast?
This barn, yeah. Just confirmation for Tuesday. So I'll need a seconder.
Okay.
Yes.
Do we have a seconder?
Councillor Roberts. Thank you.
Councillor Roberts.
Okay, so all in favor? And that passes. Thank you. Okay, so that brings us to item 5.10. Yes, Madam Clerk?
Before we start the next item, perhaps we could get a motion to extend the 3 hours.
Sure. Councillor Prinzen, feel like putting that forward? Okay, and Councillor Margetson is seconding it. Thank you. Well, we're not at the 3-hour mark yet. Yes, madam. Oh, yes, all in favor. Thank you. And that passes. Now, Madam Clerk, we're a few minutes shy of the 3-hour mark. Should we just continue? Okay. So, do you want to just go? So that brings us to 5.10, the rezoning, the official plan amendment and plan of subdivision, the Rollins subdivision. So, staff, further comments on this tiny little file?
Thank you, through the chair. This is a matter that was brought to committee back in February. There was a public meeting to present the plan of subdivision and to gather any comments and concerns from the public. And so it is being brought forward tonight for draft plan approval, as well as approval of the official plan amendment. So just to give maybe a brief recap, the official plan amendment itself, the purpose of that is to bring the subject lands into the service area 1, which will allow the property to be serviced by municipal water and sewer. And the subdivision itself is a 264 lot plan of subdivision that will be accessed off Talbot Street at the northern edge of the property, and at the southern edge of the property it would be accessed through a new intersection, Street A, traveling through the Picton Properties development, which got site plan approval a few weeks ago, and then terminating at a new intersection at Street A and Highway 33. So the subdivision has several features to it. Stormwater management, just to the north of the Picton property site. There is a large park also planned for just to the north of the stormwater facility. And if I was at them, I could show you roughly where that is. Also some townhouse development on just to the north of where the existing barn is. Other than that, it's a fairly straightforward subdivision application. It meets the intent of the official plan, and staff have reviewed it along with all the supporting documents and circulated it to all the agencies, gathered all comments from the agencies and the public. Based on that, we have drafted a list of draft plan conditions which are being recommended in conjunction with this application. And so based on that, staff are recommending that the committee approve the OPA along with the plan of subdivision tonight.
Thank you. The agent is present. Would the applicant or agent like to speak to this at this time? Hello.
My name is Arnold Vandermeer. I'm with Vandermeer Limited. I'm the agent on this project. Brendan O'Connor is the planning consultant, and Mr. Mark Rollins here, one of the owners of Rollins Investment Properties, is here as well. We did meet with staff on this project to review all the conditions that were put. You can find a little clerical errors in there if we wanted to, but we feel we can work with all those conditions. It's typical of a draft plan of subdivision approval. A lot of the conditions are more of a technical nature. They could have been more encompassing, but it's just staff informing us what their concerns are when we go through for engineering approval and for the zoning bylaw amendment requirements. It's been 4 years in the making. We thought it would have been sooner. The first phase is going to be off Talbot Street. County is presently reconstructing Talbot Street, and the services are being brought up for that phase. The second phase will be connected to the south when Picton Properties will be finishing off what we all been calling Street A, a collector road that we have worked through to be connecting from Loyalist Parkway to Talbot Street as well within the subdivision. Trying to keep the project affordable, so we got a mixed use of detached lots, a couple of semi-detached units, and a number of townhouse units, freehold townhouse units, as well as apartments for rent or for condominiumized if required. There's also the town gateway development along the front of the property where the existing farmhouse and the barns are. Will be looked at as a future phases, how that will be addressed.
So we basically can support the conditions that were put together. We feel they'll be manageable. They'll be, like I said, mostly technical in nature of what we have to address when we start processing the documents for county approval as part of the subdivision agreement. So I can answer any questions, but I'd like your support. And to do it quick, we don't need wouldn't have needed the extension. We could be going on this one.
Good luck with that. Thank you. Are there questions from council? Oh, right. Sorry. Audience members. What, oh no, we're allowed to do that now. It's part of the new protocol. You are allowed to ask questions right now of the applicant if you would like. Okay. So now, anyone who would like to speak on this item, come on up. Come on up.
Thank you. Thanks.
So sign in and state your name.
Great. I did sign in earlier.
Good. Perfect.
My name's Juliana Hobbs. I live at 15 Argyle Crescent, so adjoining the planned subdivision. We did hear tonight a lot of concerns about water and land use in the county, and I just wanted to speak tonight about the climate emergency that we're in at this time and the crisis around the loss of biodiversity too, and to kind of think forward about how we can make sense of development in that context. So I had written to the council with a few questions. I just wonder if the council could consider making approval of future housing projects, including this one, conditional upon some of the following, including carbon neutral building practices, such as installing solar panels and other energy saving methods of constructing new homes. Greater preservation of green space within the project. I did see that there is a park, which is great, but I just wonder, because it is such rich land right now in terms of biodiversity, if the amount of parkland could be increased. And also to make it more bike and pedestrian friendly within the project itself, such as having sidewalks on both sides of the street. I did like what you had to say about the commitment to building more affordable housing options within the new project, the apartments and townhouses, but maybe we could make that a requirement going forward, given the housing crisis that we're in. And also, lastly, the planting of trees has been recognized as one of the main ways that we can act locally in terms of addressing the climate emergency. So could we look at incorporating more tree planting within new developments? It just seems like right now we have a great opportunity of just over a decade to act, and what are some of the ways that we as a community can make that happen? So I just wanted to kind of bring up that this is a great opportunity that we can provide leadership in this issue. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hobbs. Would anyone like to ask a question or make a comment to the speaker? No, thank you very much. Would anyone else like to speak to this item?
I think I am allowed to respond.
Yes.
Process. I do really feel that the home building industry has been very supportive of being very active in the development of their homes and trying to be more energy efficient and dealing with the carbon issue and climate warming. We are the developer in this project. I think the builders will be coming in. One of them would be, the townhouse would be, maybe Roland's Development would be doing that one. But single family homes may be done by other local builders, and I think the home industry themselves are being very proactive in some of the issues that they're dealing with. The tree planting, I think we give more parkland, including the stormwater management facility. So there's a fair bit of open space. They'll be linking to the Millennium Trail as well. We're providing we've been asked to provide a multi-use trail along the Collector Road, Street A, between Talbot Street and Loyalist Parkway. There will be sidewalk on that site as well. All the what I would call local streets, the side streets, will have one a single row of sidewalk. It just doesn't make sense to put it on both sides. I can tell you, I see other people curse sidewalks because people are walking them with their dogs and they're leaving all the droppings there. So I see people who don't even want to be on that side of the street anymore. So that's an issue. But we will be providing sidewalks on the one side of all the local streets at this point, 1.5 meters wide for those sidewalks. And it's a 3 meter wide multi-use trail along the collector road. And on the other side would be a 1.5 meter sidewalk. And there will be linkage. I also envision, I think, probably advisement, but in most cases we've always supported that through the building on the lots. We don't see trees coming in as part of the subdivision development because they would interfere, but quite often what has been incorporated as a requirement when the builder is finished, there would be a tree left back in, let's say, the front yard or the backyard, and try to preserve some of the trees that are also within that development. So I think, yes, we understand their comments. I think we will be proactive in addressing them as well.
Thank you very much. Questions or comments? I have one, Mr. Walsh. Could you just describe what a multi-use path is for the room?
Madam Chair, Matt's actually a transportation planner by background.
Right.
He can probably put some meat on the bones, but multi-use pathway, usually we look at having an asphalted, maybe 2.5 meter wide route on one side of a main street, such as the collector street that goes from Loyalist Parkway through to Talbot Street, and on the other side a sidewalk. So we have that opportunity, or just one multi-use on one side of some of the other streets. So we've got that reflected in the conditions. So we do have provisions for active transportation throughout the subdivision.
Thank you. Can we get this on the floor? Councillor Maynard and Councillor St. Jean.
Thank you. Maynard St. Jean, motion that the report of development services dated October 16, 2019 regarding draft plan of subdivision file number 13T18501 and official plan amendment file number OPA 5-18 be received. That official plan amendment number OPA 5-2018, OPA number 78, Roland's Investment Inc. for lands located in part of lots 20 and 21, Concession 3, military tract being parts 1 to 7 on reference plan 47R-8035, save and accept part 1 on 47R-8530 in the ward of Hallowell be approved, and that the draft plan of subdivision file number 13T18501, Roland's Investment Inc. for lands located in part of lots 20 and 21, Concession 3, military tract being parts 1 to 7 on reference plan 47R-8035, save and accept part 1 on 47R-8530 in the ward of Hallowell be approved, subject to the conditions attached to the conditions presented in attachment number 9.
Thank you. Questions and comments? Councillor Nyman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I was looking through, I did not find what I was looking for, but it could be there. So I received the call, and I'm just looking at the map you got up there. So if I'm looking to on the Talbot Street entrance, on the west side, there is a property there. The homeowner called to inquire about the fence being installed there, because I had passed Matt's name on. As that's the information I was given to give your contact information. So did they contact you about having a fence installed there?
Through the chair, I don't recall having that conversation about a fence on that lot.
I don't know if it's too late, but, and this may be for the developer, Have you thought about putting just a fence down there, as I think the property and their, the road there is very, very close. There's not a lot of property there. Is there any thought given to a fence being put along that property?
At this point, no. We were looking at buffering, more with landscape treatments to give them the quiet areas, but just have a long fence along the one side of the property, along the road allowance, I think would be not very attractive to the development itself. It is single-family residential on both sides, so to me, it's like going down an existing residential street. But we would look at some landscaping provisions, and that would come up as part of the discussions and negotiations of the subdivision agreement.
Just a quick follow-up.
Yes.
And what kind of buffering? Like, I guess was landscaping. What kind of landscaping?
Well, in a situation like that, we'd probably sections of cedar hedge would break it up. Would be something we would look at. It is going on the road allowance, not on their property, so ultimately the municipality would be inheriting it, so staff would have to give some input in what they would want to see there. But that becomes a municipal roadway, and that's what we're dealing with on that one side.
Oh, okay.
Through the chair, there is a condition, number 16, under landscaping, that would ask for a 6-foot privacy fence around the perimeter of the site. And the construction of that, I believe, would be phased in as the development proceeds. Sorry, I think your question originally was, did I speak to the landowner? And I hadn't, or I don't recall speaking to them. But there is a condition in there that talks about the requirement for a 6-foot privacy fence.
Along that?
Correct. Yeah.
West.
Well, we had not interpreted it that way, but that issue became out more when we're dealing with the people along the east side of the property. We're concerned about development in their backyards, and they were looking for more privacy screening along the east side of the property. If you're looking for a fence, that's fine, but it will be maintained by the municipality.
Okay.
I find them unsightly.
Yep. No, and I appreciate that, and maybe I'll just have the owner contact you, Matt, and you can kind of hash it out, because it seems like it's not really.
Yeah, because our aim basically is to see the development being supported by the development. There is actually 2 parcels of property in there. This map is probably, let me here. This is how it really looks. So there is the one long parcel, one house here, coming all along the side here. So you'd look for a long fence all through there. And then this is a larger parcel behind it as well that was looked at to be for future development that we also had to address to ensure that they could have access to services.
Councillor Roberts?
Yes, just a brief comment. It just strikes me that for the last couple of gatherings around this horseshoe, we've had some very good suggestions from deputations and comments from the audience about climate mitigation measures, whether it's talking about drive-throughs or trees or solar, or this evening as well. And I think there could be a public perception that these are things which should be immediately become part of our planning and development deliberations. But I think it puts staff in a very awkward position, especially with regard to public perception. So, we do have an environmental, advisory committee that should get going soon. We said it was a priority, and hopefully those terms of reference will include making recommendations to council, so that council can then provide direction and policy guidance to staff. That doesn't exist at the moment. So staff would simply be shooting in the dark and making it up. So we need to get that step done to be sort of responsible and accountable. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Bailey.
I'm not sure if this is to staff or the developer. The apartment is what I would anticipate being perhaps the most affordable aspect of this. What phase is it likely to come in at?
Through you, Madam Chair, there is a strong interest in somebody acquiring that block for the apartment block. If Phase 1 basically was going to be the residential development off of Talbot Street with single family and townhouses, with the development of Picton properties going ahead, but I think they're still waiting for the MTO approval and MOE approval. Once that road is brought up, we would be extending that road up and bringing that block. It's right on the corner. Moved again on me, sorry. This two triangles in here, that's was granted to Picton Properties for the roadway that they lost. Came from Roland's Investment Corporate. They provided that land so that development potential stayed the same for Picton Properties. And this block in here is for the apartments. So the road is being brought up to that limit right there. We anticipate that we would be able to, we haven't discussed with staff yet, but that road would be extended and brought across due to the frontage and would bring that phase on sooner than later, and a good opportunity for next year.
Councillor Margetson.
My question was also related to that. So the road A wouldn't be connected for some time between Talbot and Main Street.
We didn't show it as part of the phasing.
I see it as phase 4, that connection between 1 and 2.
It is a very large project. We're looking at over 260 units. It's an $80 million project by the time it's done. It has a good opportunity for the municipality for over $1 million of taxes coming in. The link road would probably hope be sooner. It is part of the way I understood as part of the development charges. There's funding cost sharing between the municipality for that. Right. So we would be doing the local portion of it, and the municipality would be coming on side for the development to the collector portions of it.
Just to follow up then, Arnold, what was the block 165 for in front of the barn and the house on the Loyalist Parkway? I noticed
road widening.
And they had a condition in there that those weren't connected to the road, so I didn't understand that. But
that block, I believe, I can't read the numbering on here, but in front of the blocks, there was road widening granted all along Loyalist Parkway. Okay, so we pre-addressed that one, that we'd be giving the road widening to.
Okay, so they will be connected to the highway.
Yes.
And then this is a question for staff. I noticed that you didn't, or I believe I noticed you didn't request any tree planting within the streets. And I know you said, I think, Arnold, that it's not that, it's not a great practice when you're building, but we used to do that in subdivisions in Picton years ago, ask for trees. So
to the chair, in response, the standard subdivision agreement has a tree planting requirement, so the standard subdivision agreement will apply. It doesn't need to be a condition. The condition is to do the subdivision agreement. We have lots of standard provisions within that.
So you have a density of requirements based on the. Thank you.
Yep.
Good.
And Mayor Ferguson.
Thank you. Just a quick comment, if I may. Thank you, Aaron, for the presentation. I just want to take a minute to thank you, Mark, and your father for the investment you're making in our community. You're, I know it's taken 4 years, but I think this is a terrific development. You've ticked so many of the right boxes, and I think going forward you're going to deal responsibly addressing some of the issues that were brought up this morning, almost this morning, this evening, concerning conservation and green energy and those initiatives. But I want to thank you very much, most sincerely, for bringing this forward, and let's get it going.
Thank you. Any further comments? Okay, so we've got it on the floor. All in favor? And that passes with a 2/3 majority. So now let's return to council. Okay, do I need a mover for that? I do, don't I? Can I get a mover and a seconder to return to council, please? Phil St. Jean, Councillor St. Jean, and Councillor Prinzen seconding. Oh, sorry, I have to read the post-amble. Pardon me. Thank you, Mayor Ferguson. Within 15 days of council's decision, a notice of decision will be mailed out as prescribed advising of the decision, the conditions, if any, and the date on which the 20-day appeal period to the local planning appeal tribunal expires. If no appeals are received, council's decision is final. Any person who wishes to receive notification of decision of council must submit a written request to the municipal clerk or sign the sign-in sheet. So our mover was Councillor St. Jean and our seconder was Councillor Prinzen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. St. Jean Prinzen. Motion that Committee of the Whole now rise and resume sitting as council.
All in favor? Back to you.
Thank you, Councillor McNaughton. So this moves us to item 7, adoption of Committee of the Whole recommendations, which received a 2/3 majority vote in favor of the staff recommendation. Got a motion to adopt. Councillor Margetson, seconded by Councillor Bailey.
So Margetson Bailey motion that the recommendation of Committee of the Whole agenda items which received 2/3 majority in favor of the staff recommendation being items 5.2, 5.3, 5.6, 5.7, 5.8, and 5.9 be adopted.
Thank you.
And 5.10, sorry. Yeah.
All those in favor? That carries. Moves us to item 8, deferral or referral to the next council or planning public meeting. Can I have a mover and a seconder for this, please? Okay, not everybody at once. Councillor Nyman, Councillor Margetson.
It's a Nyman Margetson motion that the recommendation of Committee of the Whole agenda item, I think there was 2 or 3, so.
There are, and through you, Madam Chair, I could fill this in, so that the recommendation of Committee of the Whole agenda item 5.1 and 5.9 be referred to staff for further information, and this will go to the October 22nd council meeting. And items 5.4 and 5.5 will be deferred to the October 22nd, 2019 meeting because it did not pass with 2/3 in favor of the staff recommendation, just to be clear.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All those in favor? That carries. Item 9, bylaws for consideration. A mover and a seconder for that, please. Okay, I'll just appoint some Councillor Margetson and Councillor Prinzen.
So Margetson Prinzen motion that the following bylaws be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Bylaw 9.1.2, Bylaw 9.1.3, Bylaw 9.1.6, Bylaw 9.1.7, Bylaw 9.1.8, and Bylaw 9.1.10.
That concur? Thank you. All those in favor? That carries. Confirmatory bylaw from a mover and a seconder for Councillor Forrester and Councillor St. Jean.
Forrester, St. Jean, motion that the following bylaw be read a first, second, third time and finally passed. A bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the County of Prince Edward at a meeting held on October 16, 2019.
Thank you. All those in favor? And that carries. And the adjournment motion to adjourn, Councillor Bolick and Councillor St. Jean.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is the Bolick St. Jean motion that this meeting now adjourn at 10:22 p.m.
Thank you. All those in favor? We are adjourned.